Terrific. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to all our board members and the members of the public and to our GOJ staff. It is November 18th, 2025 at 12:05 p.m. And the meeting of the Racial and Identity Profiling Advisory Board is called to order. I'm Angela Sierra. I am an attorney with the California Attorney General's Office and the Civil Rights Enforcement Section. I'm a co-chair of our board, and I am the designee of Attorney General Rob Bonta on this board. This afternoon, after our introductions, I will be navigating us through the first half of our agenda, and then I'll be turning it over to our co-chair, Andrea Guerrero, to facilitate the second half of our agenda. We'll begin with our agenda item number 2, which is our welcome and introductions. And I'm sure as all board members here, really looking forward to this discussion today and our meeting today. We've worked very hard, and we have a number of matters to make some final decisions on. This is our last board meeting of the year. And I want to thank our members of the public for being here. And we look very much forward to your input. And I want to thank our DOJ staff for continuing to assist us. Before I turn it over to you all to make your introductions, I wanted to let you know that we have 2 new board members. I believe they're both with us today. One, and I'll want to do the brief introduction of each, is Jordan Rawl. As you all may recall, in our California's RIPA statute, there is a position on our board for an individual who is between 16 and 24 years of age, who is a representative of a community organization who specializes in civil or human rights and criminal justice. And Ms. Rawl is the Attorney General's appointee to fill that position. Ms. Rawl lives in Eastvale, California, and she is a junior at Eleanor Roosevelt High School. She is a student leader affiliated with the Council of African American Parents, and at age 16 years old, she will be the youngest member ever appointed to our board. Jordan Rawl has consistently demonstrated leadership and advocacy for Black students through her roles in her high school's Black Student Union and UMOHA programs. She has engaged directly with school leadership to address racial disparities, including the lack of meaningful Black History Month programming and the rise in racial slurs on campus. Her early activism reflects a deep understanding of systemic challenges and a strong sense of responsibility to speak out. She has also pursued legal education with intention and rigor, completing a mock trial course at UCLA, enrolling in Norco College's Administration of Justice course, and participating in the African American Leaders of Tomorrow program hosted by the California Legislative Black Caucus. Please join me in sending a very warm welcome to Ms. Rawl. And Ms. Rawl, we look very much forward to your working with us and your input and your perspective. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, great. And we'll be very interested for you just jumping in today and working with us. The second new member is a returning board member, is Chief Sean Tulise. Chief Sean Tulise will be filling the role for the California Police Chiefs Association representative. Chief Tulise was appointed chief of the Tustin Police Department in March 2025 after serving 18 years at the Beaumont Police Department and the last 9 as their chief. Chief Tulise oversees all law enforcement services for the city of Tustin. He is a native Californian and he grew up in the Inland Empire. Chief Tulise is a graduate of the University of Redlands, obtaining his master's degree in management. He is a graduate of the FBI National Academy Class 245 and the California Post Command College Class 55. Chief Talese began his public service as a police explorer and later as a reserve police officer with the Redlands Police Department. He was then sworn in as a police officer with the Redlands Police Department in May of 1999. His assignments there included patrol, FTO, narcotics, and vice detective, smash gang unit, special response team, and later corporal. Chief Talese lateraled to the Beaumont Police Department in May of 2007 to train and mentor the many new officers hired during Beaumont's rapid population expansion. He worked in patrol and then community policing, where he established the department's quality of life team. Chief Talese has worked command assignments as both a lieutenant and commander and has oversaw patrol, internal affairs, community policing, and investigations. Chief Talese is currently the first vice president of the California Police Chiefs Association and will ascend to the president position in March of 2026. So welcome back, Chief Talese. So with that, I will turn it over to my co-chair, Andrea Guerrero, for her introduction, and then all the remaining members.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrea Guerrero from Alliance San Diego, and I am a fresh appointee of Senate President Pro Tem Mike McGeady. And shall I pass it, Angela?
That'd be great.
Okay, I will pass it to Chief Talese. Nice to see you.
Thank you. I just took a little break as I made the transition from Beaumont here to Tustin and helped get the organization and moving in the direction that I wanted to see it. And so the opportunity presented itself to come back to serve. And so I'm glad to be back with this group and continue the work that we're doing. So thank you. Oh, sorry. We'll pass it to Rich Randolph.
Good afternoon, Rich Randolph, Chief of Police of Fontana School District. Glad to be here. I'm a proud representative for California PORAC. I look forward to having our discussions today. I'd like to pass on to Mr. Wade Forday, sir.
No problem. The E is silent. My grandmother added it. Just super random. Pastor Wade Ford of the 16th Street Seventh-day Adventist Church, appointee of Attorney General Bob Banta. And I'll pass it off to Jordan Rawl.
Hi, my name is Jordan Rawl. I'm a junior at Eleanor Roosevelt High School, and I'm super excited to be working with you guys today. And can I pass it on to Miss Lily?
Thank you, Jordan. My name is Lily Kajabi. I'm a professor of mathematics in the Department of Math, Statistics, and Data Science at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles and an appointee of the Attorney General's office. Can I pass it on to Chauncey?
Thank you, Board Member Kajabi. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon now. Yeah, it's past 12 p.m. Pleasure to see everybody. Great to be in the presence of fellow board members. My name is Chauncey Smith. I'm an associate director at Catalyst, California, where I work on criminal legal system reform and community safety issues. And I'm an appointee of the Attorney General. I will popcorn to Board Member Diallo.
Board Member Diallo, it looks like you are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I sure was. Good afternoon, everyone. I am a supervising deputy public defender at the Riverside County Public Defender's Office, and I also serve on the executive board of the California Public Defenders Association, and I am an appointee of that organization to RIPA, and pleasure to be here today with you all. And with that, I believe I will pass it to Board Member Kazi.
Hi, everyone. Amina Kazi. I'm a Southern California-based civil rights attorney, and I'm an appointee of Attorney General Rob Bonta. And let's see, Board Member Green, I'll pass it to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Board Member Kazi. Darren Green, Captain, California Highway Patrol in our Research and Planning section in Sacramento, California, sunny Sacramento, California today. A designee of Commissioner Sean Dury, and I do believe that is all of our membership today. Thank you. Am I missing someone?
Actually, yeah. Hi, this is Manju Kulkarni. I'm Executive Director of API Equity Alliance and co-founder of Stop API Hate. And I'm an appointee of Speaker Emeritus Anthony Rendon. Wanted to welcome the new board members, and I will be on camera shortly. I'm driving to my location. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then I think we have board member LaWanda Hawkins.
Yes, good afternoon, and I'm excited about today, and I'd like to welcome Jordan and welcome Chief back again, and can't wait for our conversation today. And my name is LaWanda Hawkins. I'm with the organization Justice for Murdered Children, and we're located here in Los Angeles. I was appointed by former Governor Jerry Brown and reappointed by our current Governor, Gavin Newsom. And thank you. And I will be on camera shortly too, once I can drop this kid off.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I believe that is all the board members that are with us today. Am I missing anybody? Please jump in. No, okay, great. Well, thank you all for being here. So we have a very full agenda, so I will move on to agenda item number 3, which is the approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to review, provide any comment or edits to, and then take a vote on. It's both the October 9th, 2025 minutes and the October 16th, 2025 minutes. So I'll give you all a few minutes to pull them up if you want to take a last look at those. And then we can entertain emotions for those. I would suggest that we have a motion for each separately, starting with October 9th minutes. Why don't we give everybody just a moment to see if there's any last minute reviews they would like of those 2 sets. You were all provided those with your package of materials. Okay. If anybody would like to make a motion with respect to the October 9th minutes?
So moved.
Great. And
Second.
Council, okay, and
sorry.
a second from Captain Green?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Great. Okay, and will our DOJ staff assist us with the vote, please?
Absolutely. Pending is a motion to approve the October 9th minutes as written. Member Diallo?
Aye.
Aye. Member Diallo votes aye. Member Ford?
Aye as well.
Member Ford votes aye. Member Green?
Aye.
Member Green votes aye. Member Guerrero?
Aye.
Member Guerrero votes aye. Member Hawkins?
Aye.
Member Hawkins votes aye. Member Kajabi?
Aye.
Member Kajabi votes aye. Member Kulkarni?
Aye.
Member Kulkarni votes aye. Member Kazi?
Aye.
Member Kazi votes aye. Member Rawl?
Abstain.
Member Rawl abstains. Member Randolph?
Aye.
Member Randolph votes aye. Member Sierra?
Aye.
Member Sierra votes aye. Member Smith?
Aye.
Member Smith votes aye. And Member Tulise?
Abstain.
Member Tulise abstains. Are there any other board members that I missed? Okay. Hearing none, the motion carries with 2 abstentions and the remainder ayes.
Thank you. So next, let's move on to our October 16th, 2025 full board meeting minutes. If there is a motion to approve those, we can entertain that.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Great. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Wonderful. Okay, and if we could take a vote on those minutes as well.
Excellent. Pending is a motion to approve the October 16th board meeting minutes as written. Member Diallo?
Aye.
Member Diallo votes aye. Member Ford?
Aye.
Member Ford votes aye. Member Green?
Aye.
Member Green votes aye. Member Guerrero?
Aye.
Member Guerrero votes aye. Member Hawkins?
Aye.
Member Hawkins votes aye. Member Kajabi?
Aye.
Member Kajabi votes aye. Member Kulkarni?
Aye.
Member Kulkarni votes aye. Member Quasi? I'm sorry, Member Quasi, I couldn't hear you. I'm not sure if I'm having audio trouble. Member Kulkarni, I can't hear. I'm sorry, Member Quasi, I can't hear you.
Let's see. No, we can't hear it either. Perhaps you could put it in the comment.
Member Quasi votes
Yes.
aye, reading from the comments. Member Rawl?
Abstain.
Member Rawl abstains. Member Randolph?
Aye.
Member Randolph votes aye. Member Sierra?
Aye.
Member Sierra votes aye. Member Smith?
Aye.
Member Smith votes aye. And Member Tulise?
Abstain.
And Member Tulise abstains. All right, the motion also carries to approve the October 16th board meeting minutes as written with 2 abstentions and the remainder ayes.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, now we can move on to agenda item number 4, which is updates by our California Department of Justice. So I'll turn it over to them for the updates. To Yasmin, and who will be presenting on item number 4.
Thank you, Co-Chair Sierra. At this point, we would like to ask our research services team to give you a brief presentation or update on the data dashboard as requested at the last board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Hello, my name is Daniel Harmon. I'm the research supervisor over the RIPA team in the research services branch. And the update we have on the RIPA dashboard is that we are pleased to announce that the department intends to produce a RIPA dashboard by mid to late 2026. In the interim, we encourage the public to view various county and city level dashboards available from some of our local law enforcement partners, such as the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office, the San Mateo Sheriff's Department, and Walnut Creek Police Department. Yeah. And that's
Okay. And does any board members have any questions or comments with respect to this information, the update on the dashboard? Let's see, we have board member Rich Randolph.
Thank you so much, Chair Sierra. Thank you, Dana, for that update. What's going to be featured on the dashboard? What are we looking at exactly?
That's a great question. It's a little early in the development for us to commit to specific features of the dashboard, but we can tell you that the dashboard will include key measures for the general public to explore in a usable and easy to access manner.
Okay, and I just had one last question. Sorry, Chair Sierra.
Yeah, sure.
On behalf of law enforcement agencies in the state, because there was a lot of concern right now about the dashboard, is this going to be an additional, is there going to be an additional data going to now start to be obtained from various agencies? Or we're just going to, this is all the data that's currently being collected by DOJ. This doesn't affect their collection process, correct?
So you're asking if the dashboard will require more data to be collected from law enforcement agencies? No, we are planning to only use existing RIPA data for the dashboard.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Co-Chair Guerrero.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that there is a dashboard that will be going into development. It would be great. I would like to request a DOJ update at every meeting we have on the data dashboard. And at the next meeting in particular, would be very interested in understanding what its features are going to be, what's included, what's omitted. Will there be cross tabs available for viewing? You know, I think, you know, like this, presenting what you have as you go to the RIPA board provides the public and us an opportunity to give you feedback so that we can produce.
I'm sorry, you froze for me. The last I got was crosstabs.
Yes. Will there be crosstabs on this data portal or filtering to allow the public to navigate the data in a user-friendly way? And I would request that at the next board meeting, we see like a mock-up for what this is going to look like so that we can provide feedback as early as possible. And in the interest of producing something that is user-friendly, accessible to the public.
Great questions. So yes, we plan to allow the general public to explore various different ways to crosstab the data or to summarize it. I can't comment on specific crosstabs at this time. And as for the next board meeting providing a mock-up, we will endeavor to present a mock-up at the earliest time that we can, knowing that it has to go through approvals and reviews before it's shown publicly.
Thank you. Any other, yes, we have a question or comment from board member Kajabi.
I just want to emphasize that, yeah, it would be very useful. I think the board's requesting to be engaged in maybe not just updates, but hopefully that's an opportunity to weigh in or to, if possible, accelerate the process, not just what the final version, so the mock-ups will look like, but even before that or along with that, just I think updates about how the process is going or what opportunities there are for the public or others to engage. I guess I'm not putting this very well, but just really emphasizing that we'd like to really have a view in, and especially the sooner is better. This is a long time in coming. So I was thrilled with your announcement, but we're looking forward to being actively engaged and having it come to fruition. Thanks. I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from our board members? Okay, seeing none, thank you. And thank you so much, Daniel, for that presentation and the update. To our DOJ staff, do we have any additional updates for this agenda item?
We do, and thank you, Board Co-Chair Sierra. Just wanted to let the board know that, as you know, every year we have a legislative update section of the report. That legislative update section of the report can be large or small, depending on the specific area that is being discussed in the legislative update. Essentially, what the goal is to give is for the board to give the public an update on legislation that has been enacted in the last year that affects the work of the RIPA board in some way, either in terms of the assessment of racial and identity profiling in law enforcement stops, or in the assessment of civilian complaint data, or in the work of the peace officer standards and training post training of law enforcement officers. So this year, our office has identified one bill, Senate Bill 734, which we intend to include in the legislative updates section of the report. SB 734 does not specifically relate to racial and identity profiling in law enforcement stops, but it does relate to law enforcement accountability in that it prohibits officers from being disciplined if a court rules that their actions violated the Racial Justice Act. For example, if a court rules that the officer demonstrated bias towards a criminal defendant, such that the defendant's arrest or conviction should be set aside. SB 734 also provides that posts cannot rely on the court's finding under the Racial Justice Act, setting aside the person's conviction as the basis for decertification under SB 2. Now, I want to be very clear that SB 734, does explicitly provide that officers can be disciplined and can be decertified based on the conduct underlying the court's determination of a violation of the Racial Justice Act. So this relates only to I wouldn't say that it's tangential, but it does not relate to police stops. It relates only to conduct or complaints of officers, and to be very clear, that it does not prohibit the conduct that a complaint that constitutes the basis for a complaint. That conduct can still be considered for the purposes of discipline or decertification, but it's simply just that the court finding of an RJA violation is not can't be used to determine discipline or decertification. So you'll see that in the final draft here. I'll give you a very brief, if I can here. Let's see here. So here is if everybody can see in terms of the legislative updates language here. It's a very brief explanation of what I've just said. Senate Bill 734, prohibiting punitive actions or other discipline of officers on the basis of a challenge under the Racial Justice Act. So this language you will see in the final draft of the report. Board Member Kajabi, I see that your hand is up. I'm happy to answer whatever questions the board may have.
Sorry, that was an old hand.
Oh, okay. Apologize.
Sorry, I will try to unraise it. Sorry. Thank you.
Well, if there's any other questions or anything like that, I'm of course happy to answer them. Just wanted to give you an update of the legislative updates portion of the report. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Any comments or questions from our board members? Okay, let's see. Seeing none. Thank you. And any additional updates from our DOJ staff, or is that complete this agenda item?
That completes it for. Oh, I apologize. Yes,
Go ahead,
we have
Alex.
no more updates. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Before we move on to agenda item 5, I believe we have 2 additional board members that joined us after introduction. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. I believe Dr. Armeline has joined us. If that's correct, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, Bill Armeline. I'm a sociology professor at San Jose State, Senate appointee. Glad to be here.
Great, good to see you. Thank you. And I believe Pastor Kreiner, I think he may have joined us. Is that correct? And if you'd like to introduce yourself. Oh, okay, maybe not. Maybe that was mistaken. Okay. So next we can move to agenda item number 5, which is public comment. Do we have any members of the public from Northern California that would like to make a comment? And if you could just raise your hand or indicate if you would like to do so. I don't see any. Any members of the public from Central? Oh, let's see. I have a hand up from Jeffrey Valentine.
Hi there,
Yes.
Chair Sierra.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I am currently hosting the physical teleconference meeting, and we have a few members of the public that would like to provide a public comment at this time.
Great, thank you.
So, did you speak?
Yes, maybe get a little closer.
Okay. I would like to know about racial profiling in terms of using artificial intelligence and geofencing software. I wanted to know, is that allowed well, I do know that the police, they can use it, but I just want to let you guys know that from me and my son being in a system where the police is abusing its power by using our artificial intelligence, by geofencing us with our data location being open. So, I mean, I don't know if, if that applies to, that's my main thing that I wanted to ask. Why are they using artificial intelligence and abusing the power of geofencing software? I forgot what the software is called, but me and my son data location is open. And we are not only getting harassed by local police, but we're being harassed by the helicopters profusely. By the local police helicopters.
Great, thank you for your comment. And it's in terms of the public comment item. What we do, just for explanation, is take in all the comments, involve comments or questions, and then they'll be considered as we are later discussing aspects of the report. And there may very well, and in this case, areas of a report that may very well relate to your questions. So I really invite you to continue engaging with us today, as this is an area that we may very well be discussing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, I see.
Board Member Sierra, I think you might be muted.
Thank you. I think we have a hand from Chauncey Smith. Let me go first, finish the public comment, and then I'll come back to you. How is that?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I believe Mr. Hilton had his hand raised.
Yes, he did. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There are really two comments that I'd like to make. One is a statement, and the other one is in the way of a question that may be answered later. The first statement is with respect to the dashboard that is now in vogue and in demand. Is it true? And the basis for my question is, I have read that the California Department of Justice is directly involved in providing input together with other law enforcement agencies in the development of a dashboard and other REPA-related things with a company called Veritone. The reason for my interest remains concern that Black people will be excluded from these developments, and we will end up with what we've always had. So I ask the question again, Why is there so much skullduggery about disclosing openly who is involved and about what? The second item regards the notion of what is or is not racial profiling. The question is this: if ICE goes into a neighborhood where people of a particular race or ethnicity live or predominate, how is that different than when the San Diego Police Department does the same thing in Southeast San Diego? And this board, these august members, say that such activity need not be reported because, by implication, such activity is not racial profiling. I'd like to see that addressed, if not today, eventually. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hilton. Let's see, do we have any more comments from Northern or Central California? Now we'll move to Southern California. Do we have any members of the public who would like to make a public comment?
This is Michelle Wittig in Santa Monica. Yes. Are you able to hear me? Great.
Yes, we do.
I'd like to suggest that the current report consider including a narrative that describes the framework for responding to disparities that are found in stop rates. I view these disparities as a signal to be attended to. However, I've encountered other people who immediately tend to dismiss disparities in stop rates preemptively, attributing them to differences in violation rates, or they'll say they're invalid due to imperfect benchmarks. While it's true that there are differences in violation rates, and it is also true that we have imperfect benchmarks, I don't view those as excuses to dismiss attending to the data when it is revealed. So I think if the report were to adopt a framework in which these differences are viewed as signals to be attended to and problems to be solved, the necessity of trying to partition the sources of the differences that are attributable to the violation rates versus those that may be attributable to bias or racial profiling. I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Board Member Sierra, we can't hear you yet. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Any other additional members of the public who would like to make a comment? Okay. I believe, let's see. Oh, and we may have one more. Jeffrey Valentine, is there an additional board member? Additional member of the public who would like to make a comment?
Yes. Hi, I would like to say something on my son's behalf. He's a child. So, we also are having a problem with, our data location being open, along with the artificial intelligence, with them abusing the power of our artificial intelligence, and on top of being in our data, being able to utilize our data, which is our data location is open. And so this has been an ongoing thing for us with the abuse of power, not only the police, the FBI, and some other agencies or whatever, but our location data is open. And so we want to let people know that, or you guys know that the police, period, any agencies should not be using the public's data in no way, shape, or form. I mean, I think that's it is abuse of powers and misconduct, and it's really it's a harm to the public, the U.S. citizens. It's really very it's dangerous for us to have our data location open, because we have a lot of people, not only with that being said, is with our data location and our using our artificial intelligence. We right now we're working with doweapons.org, Do Weapons Police right now, and so you know, anybody would deny it right now, but people are using the 5G direct energy weapons against the public with our artificial intelligence. It's being pinged off of the towers. When people use any type of devices, they're using cars. They have artificial intelligence with the loud cars. They can go by and hit us with the police. They're going by hitting us with this 5G direct energy weapons or whatever. And like I said, I'm working with my investigator, Amy Holm, out of Las Vegas, Senator Ron Wyden in Oregon, Senator Jeff Merkley with artificial intelligence, and also Senator Titus out of Las Vegas, Nancy Grace out of South Carolina. And make a long story short, our crimes analyst, she did a report last month on us. And so it just follows locally that they're using these weapons. And we do have our noise on the acoustic noise and the radiation, whatever, 5G, direct energy, EMF, RF, however, radio frequencies, however you want to say it. We have our reports. We get our reports every single month. So I just want to send a message that, you know, that's a really bad covert program. We know that it's worldwide, but my advice is just for the local police to stop using it and abusing the power of this, because this is something really big. And I've been working with Senator Ron Wyden on this for some years now. And so we don't want our people to be labeled as domestic terrorists, you know, or basically as human trafficking at its best. So that's what I got to say. And I would like to work with you on this and keep in contact with you on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I think there are no additional members of the public that would like to make a comment. So thank you all for participating. We appreciate it. Next, we will move on to agenda item number 6, which is the board discussion and vote on the annual RIPA report publication date, which we did discuss but did not vote on in our last full board meeting. And I believe we do have some additional information or presentation from our Department of Justice on this issue before we open it up for the discussion. Let me turn it over to Yasmin and Alex.
Thank you, Co-Chair Sierra. So this is just a reminder for members of the board. At the last meeting, you all discussed the possibility of, or we raised for you and asked you to consider the possibility of moving the report publication deadline. This is something that is allowed under the RIPA statute. And at the last board meeting, we had discussed that you can move the publication date to any date that you would choose, or you can leave it at the current publication date of January 1st. We did receive some questions from board members asking whether it is possible to bifurcate, for example, publication of the RIPA statutorily mandated data from the substantive report, and that is something that you are able to do. So at this time, we would like to ask you all to discuss and consider whether, one, you want to keep the current report publication date of January 1st, or whether you would like to move the date, and if you would like to move it, to what date. So with that, I will turn it back to you all to discuss, and I'm available to facilitate any vote later on in this discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Yasmin. So I'm going to open this up for board discussion. I know at the last board meeting, there were a number of different issues at play in terms of when we can be of most use to members of the legislature and policymakers to help inform proposed legislation and policy changes, as well as when we can get the most attention, from the public. And is that not necessarily the beginning of January, maybe later in January, as well as sufficient time for our, a lot of the detailed and complex work that our DOJ is doing to help us with the report, both in terms of the data and the actual drafting and finalizing the report. So anyway, let me first turn it over to our co-chair, Andrea Guerrero. I see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Angela. And I'm reflecting on the robust conversation we had in the last meeting. And as I reflected further on that discussion, what I would be supportive of is a January 1st publication of the statutory tables and a January 31st publication of the report. I think going any further into the year for publication makes it very difficult for the very people that we seek to direct the report to, the legislature, policy bodies at the local level, etc. I wanted to share that.
Sorry, Board Member Sierra, thanks.
Boy, I'm having trouble with that today. Thank you. What I was saying was that my understanding from DOJ and what Yasmin was explaining, and Yasmin, please correct me if I'm wrong, that is something that would be doable from your perspective, from DOJ's perspective, is to bifurcate those two and be able to meet a January 1 deadline for the statutory tables, and then the report coming out later in the month. Is that correct? Is that what you were basically aligned with what you were describing?
That's correct. Thank you for confirming, Co-Chair Sierra. And just to let board members know as well, an additional option to facilitate, so this is in response to Co-Chair Guerrero's concerns about directing the report and the recommendations to the appropriate parties. It is also possible for the board to schedule a legislative update at any point throughout the year too. So if the board decided to pick a different publication date, we could attempt to address that by, for example, setting up a legislative briefing for you all to present either the topics under discussion, the data findings from January 1st, or I'm sorry, if the January 1st publication date for the data moves forward, then we could set up a legislative briefing for that and potentially publish the substantive report later as well.
Okay, thank you.
Angela, if I may, I just wanted to clarify that what I mean by recommending January 1 publication of the tables is that the data files go on to Open Justice at that time, so that everyone can not PDFs of tables, but the actual data files, so that the researchers, legislators, etc., can access the data that they need, the agency level data that they need.
Got it. That makes sense. And so but then so the potential delay of the report or the change in the issuance date of the report of the 31st wouldn't delay that. That would still
Right,
be.
if we can
Yes.
bifurcate as the DOJ has just indicated we could, then I would recommend that we make all of that data available on the 1st and that the report be published on the 31st.
Any additional comments, questions, ideas regarding this matter? Let's see, we have a hand, Board Member Chauncey Smith.
Yes. Appreciate the issue being raised by the department. I like the suggestion that was offered up. I think it strikes an appropriate balance between living into making the data available in a timely manner, but also giving the department time to complete the production of the report. So to me, this seems very reasonable, and I also like the
That
idea.
vehicle is code 30 current for 2014 Toyota.
Oh, excuse me,
Out of our city.
somebody
Numbers
needs,
come out of 865 Skyland Drive.
somebody needs to mute, please. Thank you.
All right. And I also like the idea of legislative briefings. I think that can be effective also. Thanks.
Right, thank you. Okay, Chief Tulis.
Good afternoon. So I would rather keep the report as one report. I think when you just release tables or charts without context, they're interpretive. You know, it's best, and what our practice has been is to release the report in, from my understanding, in its entirety, and I think we need to keep doing that. The legislators have ample time in their legislative session to draft bills as they see fit. But to bifurcate just to get a 30-day head start, it's not a sound practice in my experience of releasing reports.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a comment from Board Member Manju Kulkarni.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, Chauncey, Board Member Smith said what I was going to. I completely agree that it would be both reasonable as well as appropriate. I think we get the data out through the tables in January, early January, produce the report at a time when it's readily accessible and people are more able to review and read it, and then also to do our legislative hearings. Thank you.
Let's see, thank you. Board Member Kajabi.
Thank you. I came to this meeting having reflected on our notes and thinking that January 31st hit a sort of a sweet spot of a little more time for report preparation, but without delaying things so much that it throws off the cycle of what can be done with the report. And I just want to clarify, I heard the suggestion about the data that annually data is also posted to Open Justice, that system, and that this publication date wasn't designed to also delay that. So by the beginning of January, the DOJ, everyone's had already had a chance to work with things. So making that data accessible through Open Justice is distinct from the report and shouldn't muddy, in my view, what the report's findings are, or how to use that data. And so, and in particular, by having a January 1st deadline, we're aligning more with the current practice anyway for the data release. That's happened. My understanding is that's happened in January anyway. And so I'd be in favor of having the report release date has been suggested, extended to the end of January instead of the beginning.
Thank you. And just to follow up on your comment, I think, and Andrea, I think this is what you're saying. I mean, as Board Member Kajabi is saying, these are kind of two distinct processes. One is data being released by the Department of Justice in Open Justice. We don't have, as a board, that's not what we are releasing. And you're not suggesting we release additional tables with our kind of any editorializing or anything like that. It's just that the Department of Justice is still issuing what it does under its process, and just the board's work, whatever tables we're including in our report, that comes out with our report consistently together with the explanation and narrative. And it could be here, as you suggested, on the 31st.
Correct. Yeah. So the statutory data release is the agency level data. It's the 5 million data points that are all crunched into Open Justice, making that available on January 1st, as has been suggested, is what I'm talking about. Any other analytic tables that are processed for our report, those stay in the report. Those aren't part of the data release. What is part of the statutory release is basically the raw data. The raw data that is processed into a format for a public review, academic review, etc., every year. So that's what I'm talking about. I think for the benefit of those who weren't at our last meeting, what appears to be slowing down DOJ is the request by board for analyses of data, not the data itself, but analyses of data. And so that has taken a while. And, now we have a final report, and we have an opportunity to review it today. But insofar as we can give DOJ extra time to just make sure everything is correct for report publication, which is separate from those statutory data dumps. I think that's okay. I in the perfect world, I too, Chief Thulis, would like everything to come out January 1. That's been my position, but I am cognizant of the concerns that DOJ has about the time crunch that they're under, given the demands that we've made of them. And going forward, I think we need to kind of curb the things that we're asking of DOJ, so that it's not such a heavy lift for the extra tables. But right now, I think a January 31st deadline, given everything that we have asked of them for the report, makes sense.
Thank you, Andrea. And I don't know, Chief Thulis, if that kind of clarification that we're not talking about tables that our board has requested or is presenting, we're not talking about those tables being issued January 1st. We're just talking about the DOJ raw data. But I think I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, and I'm sensitive to whatever the needs or whatever the requests were to DOJ, and give DOJ more time. If they need more time, this is what they do for a living, full time. They're saying they need more, and I'm sensitive to that, and I'm good with that. I just don't think we should release anything that in increments. If they need more time, and maybe I'm missing a part of the request, but why don't we give them the time to release everything at once? Why just release charts or tables or images that don't have context, unless again I'm missing something from it? But a chart and a graph are they can often be misleading.
Yeah, I think might be some confusion, if I may, Angela.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Yes,
not talking
please.
about anything that you would see in the report. Any of those charts, none of those would be what is released.
Okay.
Those are all like second level analyses that are done for purposes of the report, based on the board's request for wanting to see this compared to that and all of those things. What gets released and at the beginning of the year, separate from the report, and it's on the website, and it's called statutory or mandated tables. And it's this massive file that is constant. It's the same data that all the agencies, you know, have given, and then it is put into the, you know.
I think I got you. Like an almost like an Excel table or file.
Exactly.
I got you.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, so releasing that allows the academics, the legislators, anyone, the agencies, the policymakers, anyone who wants to see that raw data, which
Right. Just an aggregate data.
aggregate data, yeah, then
Okay.
they can see that. But it's not all the
Understood.
fun, there's no charts, it's not all the fun things. It's a giant Excel sheet, basically.
Well, then I would be in support of, if I heard a motion, I would be in support of that as well.
Great. Great, thank you. Let's see, we have is Manju? Or maybe she just joined. Okay, any additional comments, questions, ideas from our board members? No. Okay. So, Andrea?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we release the mandated tables and data through Open Justice on January 1st, and the RIPA report with its narrative, analysis, charts, pictures, everything on January 31st.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Great, we have a second from Board Member Smith. Can DOJ please take a vote?
We can. So pending is a motion to release the statutorily mandated data and tables through Open Justice on January 1st, and to release the RIPA report, which contains the narrative analysis, on January 31st. Member Armeline?
Aye.
Member Armeline votes aye. Member Kreiner? All right, not hearing Member Kreiner, we'll come back to you. Member Diallo?
Aye.
Member Diallo votes aye. Member Ford?
Aye.
Member Ford votes aye. Member Green?
Aye.
Member Green votes aye. Member Guerrero?
Aye.
Member Guerrero votes aye. Member Hawkins?
Aye.
Member Hawkins votes aye. Member Kajabi?
Sorry, I need to unmute. Aye. Thank you.
Member Kajabi votes aye. Member Kulkarni?
Aye.
Member Kulkarni votes aye. Member Kazi?
Aye.
Member Kazi votes aye. Member Rawl?
Aye.
Member Rawl votes aye. Member Randolph?
Aye.
Member Randolph votes aye. Member Sierra?
Aye.
Member Sierra votes aye. Member Smith?
Aye.
Member Smith votes aye. And Member Tulise?
Aye.
Member Tulise votes aye. And circling back to Member Kreiner. Member Kreiner, are you present? Okay, not hearing Member Kreiner, the motion does carry unanimously with all board members that are present today. And that means that the statutorily mandated data and tables will be published on Open Justice on January 1st, and we will publish the RIPA report with its narrative analysis on January 31st.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to our co-chair, Andrea Guerrero, for the remaining agenda items to help us facilitate that.
Thank you so much, Angela. So we are going to turn to discussion of the board report. And we had an opportunity to have a lengthy discussion about the different sections of the report and provide additional input at the last meeting. And so we have a good amount of time to just go back through we have one more opportunity in this meeting to provide any additional input to the report. We will need to take a vote on this report and the recommendations contained therein. So I suggest that we take this piece by piece, and we start with the introduction, which is in your materials. The introduction is a summary of the sections, and it provides an overarching introduction to the report, what we do, and then it goes through the section. So if you can pull that up in your files, it's only about 5 pages, but it summarizes the stop data section, the civilian complaints section, the state and local racial identity profiling policies section, post training and recruitment, accountability, and then ends with a reflection on the continuing need for RIPA in 2026. I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes to look that over. So the intro should be familiar to us insofar as we have already gone through the sections of the report in the last meeting. But if there are any last words on the intro here, now is a good time to speak. There are no recommendations or anything here, but there are in the next section. So we won't pause on this one except
Board Member
to.
Guerrero? Yes, sorry.
I apologize. I apologize.
I don't know if you
didn't
can see hands. But just,
yeah, they just popped up. Okay,
oh, okay,
sorry.
great. Thanks.
Board
Okay,
Member
Board
Randolph.
Member Randolph.
Thank you so much, Miss Andrea, and glad to see all of you on this bright and sunny day. I just want to confirm, Andrea, we're going to break this up into groups like you normally do, like we're going to piece by piece. Okay, so I'll jump right into the introduction. Thank you, DOJ, for an elaborate introduction. So, and I know this is the most important part because this is the first thing the legislation sees. This is the first thing law enforcement sees. This is the first thing the public sees. So I noticed in this year's report, we speak about federal immigration enforcement agents' use of racial profiling, lumping in law enforcement, who are the only officers in California required to fill out RIPA forms with federal officers, is unfair and misleading. I feel strongly that anything related to immigration enforcement should be removed from this report. Local law enforcement is barred under California law from participating in immigration enforcement actions, and we go by that. This conflation is unnecessary and harmful to California's peace officers who proudly live, work, and serve in our communities. Particularly in the last section of the introduction, this draft claims that last year the RIPA board examined RIPA data in depth, in quotes, in depth to identify trends and recommendations to address concerns about state and local law enforcement responses to federal immigration enforcement policies. This is a gross overreach of the board's scope. RIPA does not we don't collect data on immigration enforcement. We're tasked with examining the state of racial profiling in the state of California, not federal immigration actions. I'd like to make a motion to remove this from the report, and then I'll be good for the introduction.
Okay, I will, I'll take additional comments, but I do want to intervene here because I don't believe you were at our October meeting dedicated to this topic. And so I just wanted to share that this section is reflective of that meeting, that special meeting that Attorney General Bonta attended, in which we discussed the data that RIPA does collect and analyze on when local law enforcement engages with federal law enforcement, which is very limited, as you point out, but it is a data point that we do collect. And the duty to intervene under state law is something that we covered in that meeting. So I know that not everybody was able to come to that meeting, but the language in the introduction is reflective of that meeting. And I see Board Member Kajabi has her hand up.
Thanks. I wanted to make a comment that's about having an executive summary. And so it's not in the introduction, but this seemed like the moment to just put that idea out there. And in past years, we've sometimes had some kind of handout or limited, maybe a 1 or 2 page, some graphical displays, some kind of executive summary handout. And I just wanted to put out there that that's something we could circle back to this year. And I'm just mentioning it now because the introduction's overarching. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Solis.
Hello there. Yes, I was not present at that special meeting either. I will just say that, the strength of SB 54, the California Values Act, I think supersedes the need to say RIPA should continue because of the federal incursion into local communities. I mean, because then we're going to say that local law enforcement's not abiding by SB 54, because that's how it reads. And it might have been explained differently, but I'm just telling you, as a layman person, they're just going to look at this for the first time. You're saying that SB 54 doesn't go far enough, and so RIPA therefore needs to take over and continue its work. I would say that's not the reason RIPA was formed through legislation, and we should rely on SB 54. I would go back to the fact and say we don't need SB 54 because we had never wanted to do that job in our communities. None of us wanted to get into that realm. However, SB 54 is there, and it is the law, and we do abide by it, and it's good enough on its own. And I'll rest on that.
So I would invite everyone who wasn't able to attend the October meeting on the interaction of racial profiling and federal law enforcement to review the video and the slides that were presented there. The focus of that meeting was on the duty to intervene. It was an opportunity to educate the public on the current state of racial profiling at the federal level, because the rules operate differently at the federal level than they do. The meeting was held days after the Supreme Court let stand racial profiling in California. And so the conversation at that meeting, which is reflected in the summary, was about what state and local law enforcement officers can and cannot do vis-a-vis racial profiling that they may be witness to or observing, and specifically the duty to intervene that officers have. So I invite you to view that. I think the language in the summary is a fair representation of that meening and what the board had earlier in the year wanted to do, what they did, and this is now a reflection of that. But there is a motion on the table, and so if somebody wants to act on that, they have the ability to do that. I'm going to continue to move through the raised hands. Board Member Ford.
I just wanted to get just a little bit of clarity. Chief Randolph mentioned something that I wanted to better understand myself. And so let me express what I'm hearing, and you could just maybe clear that up for me so that I kind of understand the dialogue. So I'm looking through SB 54, right? And so if SB 54 is creating a particular guideline, directive, and law, but ICE federal enforcement is not held to the California legislation, does that then mean, based on what I'm trying to hear, does that then mean that California law enforcement is being held responsible for things that are federal agencies' offenses? So then is the data then skewed because of the federal agencies who are not per se complying with California state legislation?
No, to clarify, and again, I invite everyone to watch this meeting because I think we really tried to lay it out very clearly that state and local law enforcement have a role to play in the state in keeping the public safe. And we do collect data on what are called pass-offs between local and state law enforcement and federal agencies. And so we are able to see when there are pass-offs, and there are limited allowances for those pass-offs. And so that is in our data. But the focus of the meeting that we held was about the role of local and state law enforcement officers to protect the public when they are witness to racial profiling that may lead to excessive force and other abuse of power. And under state law, state and local law enforcement have a duty to intervene. And so that is what we covered. We did not cover what federal agencies have the power to do apart from distinguishing that from what state and local law enforcement have the power to do. But the focus was on the role that state and local law enforcement have. We had a retired local chief who shared his wisdom with us. I do want to move us on though, because we already had that meeting. We had an opportunity for board members and the public to engage with this topic. The introduction here is a summary reflection of that. This is what we decided to do in the last meeting, that we wanted to acknowledge, in a summary fashion. We weren't making recommendations off of it. We were just acknowledging that we had had that special meeting and we wanted to reflect that as part of our year's work. That's what this language does.
So I understand what you're clarifying, and I did go through all of the material from the special meeting that we had. My statement was a bit of attempting to understand, not what we had our last meeting. I got that. My statement was to better understand what Chief Randolph's concern was. And so that was what I was speaking to, was what his concern was. It wasn't our last meeting. I got that one, right? So I'm not trying to belabor something we've already done, just trying to understand what Chief Randolph was speaking to and what his concern was. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Kazi.
I just wanted to suggest that I see there is a footnote 8 that does link to the prior meeting materials, and a simple fix is perhaps just to, instead of having a footnote, just call it out a little bit more, like for further information or access to the prior meetings. I think it's helpful to know some reactions. I also thought that this was a little too summarized, but having been at the meeting and the July meeting, I knew that there was a lot more discussion, but perhaps just calling this out a little bit more and linking to the prior meeting materials would save a lot of confusion with future readers.
Thank you. Board Member Kajabi.
Hi, very quickly, I want to suggest there's the labeling to this last part of the introduction that says the continuing need, and what I heard in the concerns that were raised is somehow distinguishing at some level the state and federal activities. And so I wonder if instead the paragraph, which I thought well summarized or importantly captured our October 9th meeting, have a title that refers specifically to that, and then this continuing need goes really with the last paragraph. So if anyone's looking at the introduction itself, and that might help maybe ease some of this tension. Thanks.
Board Member Smith.
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm good with the introductory statement as is. I'm also okay with the suggestion offered up by Board Member Kajabi.
My apologies, Board Member Sierra. I think I
Yes,
skipped
thank
you.
you. In following up on some of these comments and Chief Randolph's comments, I think one suggestion I have, and maybe kind of bridging this a bit, is, for example, on page 1, we talk about, although it's not clear how the courts will limit racial profiling in federal law enforcement, the comments and actions we have been discussing and discussed at that meeting demonstrate the vital need for the board to find ways to reduce or eliminate profiling in our state's law enforcement agencies. And I think, Chief Randolph, I think that connection that you were saying how it may be interpreted as that we are suggesting that we believe the agencies are not following the Values Act. But how I read that, and maybe there's a way to maybe make it a little bit more nuanced, is that we do know, and we have strong reason to believe that our residents in California are being subject to racial profiling by federal law enforcement, or because of, the positions they have taken. And that is, and that our Values Act does not cover what they do. But how I see this, because of that, and because of what the experiences of our residents, because of that to me underscores the need to do whatever we can to continuing our work with our own law enforcement agencies, because our residents are feeling even a more heightened burden in this era. So that's how I read it, but I could see how others could read that differently. And maybe we do need to weave in a little bit of, we do have a Values Act in California, and that relates and does, and we have RIPA. So there are rules for our local and state law enforcement. Those are different than our federal. And despite that, though, it has heightened the need for what we do. So
Okay.
that's my comment. And I'm wondering, thinking that maybe that addresses some of the concern that was raised.
Board Member Kajabi, I don't know if that's a new hand or an old hand. Old hand. Okay. Board Member Randolph.
I'm an old hand. Sorry.
Okay. That came across.
I just
wrong.
want to thank everyone for thinking outside the box, and Lily just knocked it out of the park. A subsection identifying, because when I grab this report, if you talk to legislators, and I do every week, when they look at that RIPA report, the first thing they start doing is the first few pages is what they've heard. And when the introduction reads that, if I'm layman's terms, this looks like California law enforcement is cooperating with federal immigration, and that's not the case. And so, yeah, I just wanted to have that clarification. So thank you so much, Angela, for also bringing that up as well.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Board Member Randolph, I don't know if you want to, we haven't heard a second, so I don't know if you want to withdraw it or amend it, or
I'd like to withdraw
invite-
that motion.
Okay,
I'd like to withdraw that motion. And now, am I allowed to throw out a secondary motion, Andrea?
sure.
I'd like to motion for my constituents here of the RIPA board, reference the introduction. Lily, help me out. What was the verbiage you used? Lily had mentioned a subsection outlining the Values Act.
So I want to say that Board Member Sierra really laid out some greater distinction, but also I'm proposing that the headings be then modified just for the last part of the report. So,
how about a motion for I make a motion for the introduction here to have the headings modified, and as Board Member Sierra mentioned, basically making a side note about the Values Act. That's all.
Thank you. So that's a motion on the table. I don't know if anyone wants to act on that motion. or further discuss or propose a motion of their own?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. DOJ, can we call for a vote?
Thank you. Motion on the floor to modify the headings of the introduction to reflect on page 5 that the paragraph entitled "The Continuing Need for RIPA in 2026" be modified. That title be modified to "The board's meeting on October 9, 2025." That the paragraph following it have a title that says "The Continuing Need for RIPA in 2026." And a motion that on page 1, the last paragraph, have a side note that the board understands that our residents are subject to racial profiling by federal law enforcement. The Values Act does not cover what federal law enforcement does. That absence highlights the need to reduce or eliminate racial profiling in state and local law enforcement. I believe I've captured that. If that's correct, and we can move to a vote on that very large motion. I apologize. We're going to alphabetical order. Board Member Armelin.
Aye, and thanks to Chief Randolph and Lily for the good compromise there.
Armelin, aye. Board Member Kreiner. Member Kreiner, I'll come back to you. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford. Thank you. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Board aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green aye. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi aye. Board Member Roll.
Aye.
Roll aye. Board Member Randolph.
Aye.
Randolph aye. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith aye. Board Member Talise.
Aye.
Talise aye. And Board Member Kreiner, I apologize if I missed it. Did we have an answer from her? I'll put it down as no vote recorded unless you'd like to leave it in the chat. That motion carries.
Thank you so much. So let's go in order of the sections as they'll appear in the report. We have a stop data section that we'll take a look at. The stop data section does not have any recommendations. It just has a reporting of data analysis with attached charts. I'll give folks a few minutes to take a look at that.
Sorry, Andre, which report did you move to?
2026 Stop Data Draft Report section. It's the long one. It's 112 pages. And probably we've taken a look at the data more than anything else. So again, this is not new, but we've been making recommendations along the way for cleanup of language and clarification, asking for tables to be as clean as possible. I appreciate the work that DOJ has done to be responsive to our interest in understandable charts and figures. And I understand as part of the, once we approve the report, as part of the last work that DOJ will do is they'll vet it through their accessibility folks to make sure it's ADA compliant. Regarding colors and the visuals and such. And I see board members are ready to weigh in, so I'll start with Board Member Kajabi.
Thank you. I just today wanted to make two brief comments. We have talked about this section a bit. One is that I can't tell if it's from page 90 or 91 on, there were a series of tables. I think maybe it says they're really for the appendix. So I just wanted to flag that for DOJ, that those then, they're not, at any rate, just to, so we notice that so they land where they're supposed to land and are presented in a way that, you know, is digestible there. And then also I wanted to circle back. We got this brief but positive data dashboard announcement, but that also was something we talked about a bit with the stop data section last time, that we would elevate that to a recommendation. Currently in the introduction of the stop data section, the last sentence that was coming from a previous draft is still there, but I guess I wanted to put it to the board. Should we strengthen here the call for the data dashboard? On the one hand, in light of the fact we have now there's a plan with a timeline, rough timeline attached for next year. And on the other hand, this has been a continuing theme and call. So I guess you can hear I'm bringing this up because I'd like to strengthen that.
Okay, and that could certainly take the form of a motion, Lily. So something for you to think about as we move through the comments.
Okay, so
Board
let's
member,
come back. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Board Member Sierra.
Yes, I have a technical on a technical matter suggestion. This chapter talks a lot about Terry stops, and the one thing I noticed is that we don't fully define or in the body define that until much later in the chapter. It's page 72, and I would just suggest that that definition be brought up sooner in the chapter when we first start talking about a Terry stop. And since we use it and we reference those type of stops so often, to put that in the body and not just in a footnote. But I think that's important for all the readers to understand, you know, what is a Terry stop and frisk. So that's just a kind of a technical suggestion.
Thank you. Board Member Thulis.
I concur with Board Member Sierra on that, and then also draw DOJ's attention to page 56. Just accessibility, very difficult. It looks as though that page was scanned in. I don't know if they drew that from aggregate data, but it's very difficult in the color schemes and the font to read. And I'll rest on that.
Thank you.
So that was the so-called co-occurrence table, I think, just to, in case there are different drafts with page numbers. I think that was the table that's being referred to, or the chart. Thank you.
Okay, so what I've heard so far is to drop pages 91 on, which appeared to have been included in this draft by error. It says not for review and not to be included in the draft, but it was. So to drop those extra pages, to define a Terry stop sooner, to recommend to include a recommendation around data dashboard, and to make sure that in fact the charts and figures are accessible in terms of the font, the color, the visualization, the clarity, etc., with one example provided by Board Member Thulis. Are there any other thoughts about this section? And I'm wondering if people feel the same about these things. If I think we would need to put them into a form of some motions. Maybe we could split them up. There's an actual recommendation that Lily, you were considering making, and then there's maybe a motion to approve this section with the Terry stop accessibility dropping out pages 91 on. That would be my suggestion. But Lily, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the wording should include the wording of a recommendation, or we could defer to DOJ to propose something.
You can go ahead.
Is that to me or DOJ?
Lily.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm proposing that, or I'd like to hear thoughts on, should instead of saying we encourage the implementation of a public data dashboard, that could remain an introduction, but should there be in fact also a recommendation at the end of the section? Advantages, it's more in parallel with many of the other sections, and it does reflect the discussion, and it reflects public comments and other interests expressed throughout the year. That said, we know a dashboard's coming, we think now, so yeah. I guess if there are any objections to recommendation, I'd love to know. And if not, what's the easiest way for us to quickly craft and put to a vote? Something.
Yeah, so we have not, I don't know if in the past we've made a recommendation to the DOJ, but we are our own body. We can make a recommendation to the DOJ, and that would thus need to come from the board, not from the DOJ staff. So if you feel moved, Lily, to make a motion on that, I would be supportive of a motion that clarified a recommendation from the board to DOJ to move with great haste, however you want to word it, on a data dashboard to develop and implement one, so that our underscoring that we've been doing over the last several meetings is solidified and formalized.
So could we have, okay, so I guess I'm proposing that the section end with a recommendation, and it's going to be a short and sweet section, and that it capture this idea that reflective of board deliberations and public comments and past reports, that the board, I like what was the wording? The board urges
so
DOJ
perhaps
to move with great haste. Anyway, do you want to, you're a better wordsmither than I, did you want to?
Okay, so what I hear you say is I hear you making a motion to recommend to the Department of Justice that they develop and implement a data dashboard with great haste. Is that what I heard you say?
that captures it. And of course, there are additional details we add, but I also think it's fine to be, I don't think this needs to be detailed. There's so much yet to be worked out. And I appreciate now procedurally you're saying this is different than recommending to the legislature, but I again, I think it's consistent with the section and our past discussion. And it's just elevating it so it's not just kind of hidden at the end of the introduction. Alex, I saw you nodding.
All right.
Do you have a
So
version of that percolating there, or beautiful?
Alex, do you want to state it? And we don't have a motion yet on, I mean, we don't have a second on this.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
A second. Oh, sorry. Did you not want me to second?
Okay, so Manju has seconded. Alex, do you want to restate the motion?
I just want to be to be clear, is this a motion to, if it's just, excuse me, if it's just a motion to include a recommendation at the conclusion of the stop data section that states specifically, the board recommends to the Department of Justice that the Department of Justice develop and implement a data dashboard with great haste. That's what I've recorded. That's what I understand the motion to be, but I just want to clarify. I heard that there was other language that had been flagged, and an approval of the this section. That
Yeah,
would be a
that's
separate
that's
motion.
coming separately.
Separate. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the motion on the table is. Oh, I apologize, Co-Chair Sierra.
Oh, no, I don't, I had another comment about this. If I just throw it in. So, I think the one term with great haste that it gives me a little pause in thinking about, I think the DOJ, we're going to do this as quickly as we can, but we have to be sure that all appropriate, protocols are being followed. And just with respect to, like we said, we're asking to have, tables or presentation at the next meeting, that our office will do what it can. It will give updates, but it can't necessarily make promises at this point yet as to the timing. So I just don't want to, I think that kind of term could mean different things to different folks. And I would suggest just having a recommendation that DOJ should create the RIPA data dashboard, and also add that it's accessible to the public, making that clear.
Is that a friendly amendment that you would like to suggest to
That
the?
would-
Very friendly. Yeah.
Yes, that's a friendly amendment. That it would
Okay.
read that the Department of Justice should create a RIPA board. DOJ should create a RIPA data dashboard that is accessible to the public.
So the previous wording would develop and implement, but now without great haste, which does not mean without great haste, and but in particular that's publicly accessible.
Is that acceptable to you, Lily?
Oh yes, I hope. Yeah, let's move forward.
Okay, is that acceptable to you, Manju?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so DOJ, can you call a vote?
Motion on the table to include a recommendation in the stop data section that states the following. The board recommends to the Department of Justice that the Department of Justice should create a RIPA data dashboard that is accessible to the public. Do the call the motion vote in alphabetical order? Board Member Armelin.
Aye.
Armelin, aye. Board Member Kreiner. Board Member Diallo.
Yes.
Oh, Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board Member Roll.
Aye.
Roll, aye. Board Member Randolph.
No.
Randolph, no. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Talise.
No.
Talise, no. Looks like the motion carries on a vote of 13-2.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so we've completed stop data. I'm sorry, not quite. Once again, we had several suggestions, so I'm inviting a motion to approve the stop data section with 3 changes. Moving the definition of Terry stop sooner, dropping pages 91 on from the report, and lastly, ensuring that the visualizations are accessible fully. So I'm inviting a motion to approve the stop data section with those 3 changes. Would anyone like to make
So
those?
moved.
Okay, Board Member Diallo has made that motion. Do I have a second? Chief Talise.
Sorry, just for clarification, we're only voting on the cleanup portions, not the entirety of the report, correct?
Correct. The motion is to accept the stop data section with 3 changes. Moving the definition of Terry stop sooner in the report, dropping pages 91 on, and accessibility.
Thank
We have a motion. We're waiting for a second.
A second.
DOJ, can you call a vote?
Thank you. Motion on the floor to approve and accept the stop data section with the following amendments: that on page 1, the definition of Terry stop is going to be inserted into the body of the report, not the footnote. On page 91, from page 91 onwards, the tables that are reflected on page 91 onwards are deleted. And on page 56, that our office will ensure that the chart and all subsequent charts, in this section are in compliance with ADA compliance. Board Member Armley.
Aye.
Armlene, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Aye.
Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi. Kazi, aye. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board Member Randolph.
Aye.
Randolph, aye. Board Co-Chair, Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Talise.
Aye.
Talise, aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Let's move on to the civilian complaints draft report section. Give folks a few minutes to pull that up. It's 12 pages, so this is a shorter section. There are no recommendations here, so we're just reviewing for clarity or any other input you want to provide. There is, I'll just flag on page 11, there is a discussion of the prior recommendation. It is not a new recommendation, but it is a prior, an update on a prior recommendation to amend, the recommendation had been to amend Penal Code Section 148.6 regarding complaint language. But on November 10th, just about a week ago, the California Supreme Court finally ruled on its case, Los Angeles Police Protective League versus City of Los Angeles, to settle the question and determine that the requirements that complainants read and sign a written advisory when filing a complaint is not enforceable. And so and then there's a sentence, the board will continue to examine this issue further in a future report. So just flagging, that's not a new recommendation, that is an update. I'll give folks a few minutes to take a look at these 12 pages. When you're ready, throw up a hand if you have any comments. Manju.
These are very minor comments, but on my page 3, and then starting again on pages 5 through I believe it's 10. I would recommend on page 3, it's hard to see the difference between the red and the orange. And so if there could be a different color used, so that we know which numbers they're referring to, between sustained and not sustained. And then also if starting page 5, the colors in that those graphs not be sort of monochromatic, but like more multiple colors. I think it would also be a little bit easier to see the differences from years. Just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And that goes, I think, to the accessibility issue, the ADA compliance that we raised in the last section. Board Member Tulis.
Yep, I just wanted to concur with Board Member Kulkarni on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed that in this section, the charts that start, or the figure on page 5 on don't have values for the bars. So we don't know what those numbers are, unlike prior sections and prior figures. So it would be great to see those. Any other thoughts about this section? If not, I would invite a motion to accept this section with the suggestions, the repeated suggestion for ensuring that the visuals are accessible and complete with data values.
I'd like to
88.
make that a motion, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Second,
Okay,
please. Second motion.
thank you. DOJ, can you call a vote? Any discussion, I suppose? Any discussion? Oh, DOJ, can you call a vote?
Yes. Motion to approve the 2026 civilian complaints section with, and DOJ will look into ADA compliance with regards to the charts and making sure that data values on the charts are reflected in the draft. Member Armeline.
Aye.
Armeline, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Aye.
Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, Hawkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board Member Randolph.
Aye.
Randolph, aye. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Talise.
Aye.
Talise, aye. That motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the policies section. And this section does have recommendations, so we will need to dive into those. While you're pulling the section up, I'll just provide just an overview of the section, which really focused on law enforcement practices such as oversaturation, concentration of law enforcement presence in communities, and how they affect the sense of public safety within the community, and how limiting or prohibiting such practices could reduce racial identity profiling and improve public safety. The section also looked at alternative enforcement technologies, such as the use of face recognition technology, gunshot detection, predictive policing, and explored the question of whether those exacerbate the effects or the practices of oversaturation. The section also revisited the issue of pretextual stops and looked at how several jurisdictions in California have taken steps to improve public safety with local ordinances related to pretextual stops. So that's just an overview. The section itself is 55 pages, and it concludes with recommendations. Sorry, 54 pages. And it concludes with recommendations that begin on page 54, I believe. I'll give folks another minute to just review. Before we get into we've got some hands up, so we'll start taking those. Board Member Diallo.
Yes, thank you. I just making a comment regarding recommendation number 2, the alternative technologies section. There was extensive discussion about revising that, and I think this is much more reflective and much improved in terms of, there was a concern that we were kind of ahead of our skis as far as that recommendation, and this makes it clear that it needs further study and directs the legislature to that regard. So I'm pleased to see that amendment. I think it's reflective of what we discussed.
Thank you. Board Member Sierra.
Yes. Okay. A couple of things. Yeah, and with respect to the recommendation that Board Member Diallo was referring to, yeah, I do. I agree with that. I do have a couple of suggestions, really more technical, and one clarification. We say the governor and the legislature should enact legislation. And I think including the governor there, even though it is going to be a funding issue, will need to be funded, I would suggest that we delete the words governor and, because it's not the governor who will be enacting the legislation. So that's just more of a technicality. And then I think it may be helpful to put in some language about who would be allocated the resources. So one proposal would be to add the phrase that the legislature should enact legislation to allocate resources to an entity with the needed capacity or expertise, such as a state commission or research institution to study, etc. So those are the two comments I have on that recommendation. A more general comment I have with respect to the recommendations is to the first one in this area about recommending legislation to prohibit policies that rely on oversaturation. And I've been giving, I think we discussed this in our last board meeting, and I discussed some of the concerns I have, because I think our report does a great job of describing the dangers and the problems with oversaturation and like disproportionate concentration of law enforcement in certain communities. But I'm still concerned that I think we need to be able for legislation to be enacted to address this. I think we would be incumbent upon us to come up with like a working definition of what is an oversaturated response. Or what is oversaturation policing? We're using some very general terms. I think, policymakers are going to need to come up with a test that everybody can agree on or be used for each agency to figure out, like, is my deployment, is that considered oversaturation or is not? What are the factors to be considered? So I think that is one issue that I think we would need to grapple with. And then I think another area to grapple with is, and what are the other possible solutions for needs of a community that right now may be being addressed by oversaturation, but what are the other remedies? Is it non-police response to matters? We do talk a little bit about in the report that, there also is like this twofold problem, sometimes oversaturation coupled with non-responsiveness. So I just, looking at this, really giving it a deep dive again, looking at what we presented, I think we've done a great job identifying the problem. I just don't know yet if we're ready to present a solution, or in my view, to recommend legislation. What I do think that at a minimum we could recommend or think about recommending is that local law enforcement agencies should make publicly available data and information related to their deployment, their geographic deployment of resources and technology in different parts of the community. I think that would be an important first step. And then finally, I do think that our other recommendations saying we need more information and we want to do more work on these alternative enforcement technologies, very much in alignment with what that one member of the public talked about. And then talking about pretext stops in our other recommendation, those get to the very specifics that are very related to oversaturation. But again, I'm just concerned, and I'm not sure I'm convinced yet that we have enough to recommend legislation with respect to the global issue of oversaturation. So anyway, that's kind of a big general comment I have on that one.
Thank you, Board Member Sierra, Board Co-Chair. Board Member Tulis.
Hi, so I would support most of Board Member Sierra, just in what she's saying and terminology and how broad it is, but with the caveat that, to ask police departments to track more, or our officers to report more data on our deployment methods. I mean, officers have assigned beats. They go where they patrol their areas or they go where they're called. And so I think a big component missing from RIPA and this whole discussion is victims and victims' rights. We go where we're called. So we can't forget that. We go into the neighborhoods where people have asked us to partner with them to make their neighborhood safer. And that's a big part of our strategy is when we have town hall meetings or we hear concerns from our residents and say, we want to see you more. We want to see you partnering with us. And so that part's missing because we go where we're needed. And really, quite honestly, we're the only group that goes where we're needed. When people ask for help in these neighborhoods, it's us. And so, again, we're just missing that component and that humanity to this discussion.
Thank you. Board Member Hawkins.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for bringing up victims' rights and crime victims, because we're the ones who call law enforcement when we're in trouble. And we do appreciate you showing up and standing up for us when no one else will, especially when it's at our worst. So we're very concerned, and we do appreciate law enforcement because they're the only people that we have when things do go wrong. And when it comes to crime victims' rights, it's law enforcement that we call on to protect our rights. So I say thank you, Chief, on that part.
Thank you, Board Member Hawkins. Board Member Kulkarni.
To ask a question related back to Co-Chair Sierra's point regarding oversaturation policing. And so what I wanted to ask, I was looking through the report or that section and starting on page 6, I wanted to ask DOJ if there was in fact a definition, either within the footnotes or in the text. I don't happen to see it. And so was wondering if there is a definition, then perhaps that would help to address Co-Chair Sierra's question or concern.
Thank you. Would someone from DOJ like to respond?
I'd be happy to respond very quickly to Board Member Kulkarni's question regarding the definition. So we have cited to a couple of articles in footnote 31 that talk about the definition of saturation, of oversaturation. And I'm not suggesting that this is something that Board Member Kulkarni is asking, but if similar to the request from the Stop Data section, if the board would like us to include the definition in the text of the report, then of course we're happy to do that as well.
Thank you. Board Member Randolph.
Thank you so much, Chairman Guerrero. I'm sorry, Andrea. I am so glad that we're having this discussion right now, but one thing I just wanted to point out as we talk about saturation, and we have talked about technology, and this is really going to be a concern for law enforcement statewide, is since we have a lot of new board members here, I just wanted to focus on the RIPA board Penal Code 13519.4. And if you look at the subsections here, and especially the subsection E, it outlines our parameters on racial profiling and what the RIPA board stands for. And I am just excited that we're still here working together, but I do think that when we're talking about technology and oversaturation and modifying deployments for law enforcement agencies, when we're doing that, we're once again, we're going to the overreach. And that is a concern on behalf of law enforcement. And that's definitely a concern that we have expressed that at the assembly as well. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Diallo.
Thank you. On reflection, I think it's an outstanding recommendation from Co-Chair Sierra regarding the lack of a definition from oversaturation. It's actually kind of making me reflect on the recommendation as a whole. Because at one level, you could think of oversaturation, and this is kind of my initial reaction, as at the department level, a policy recommendation from, or in terms of deployment of resources in a very specified, concentrated way based upon whatever policy recommendations are made at the department level. Or you can kind of look at it from a bottom up, where our deployments are being resourced, and by definition, that's oversaturation. That would not be kind of my initial thought about it, but it could be read, I guess, both ways. And that goes to Chief Tulise's, I think, concern in terms of, because I think data collection would be important, but I would think of data collection on a department level versus kind of adding additional requirements on the officer level for collecting data. But, I could see that as, being onerous on one level, and we could have discussions in terms of whether, that's what's needed. But departmental policies in terms of deployment of resources in a very specific way that would be considered oversaturation in terms of whatever definition that we would give, I think would be appropriate. And I don't think, would just add to transparency and understanding of what the issue is. But then I'd be open to, as we dialed back kind of the recommendations as to number 2 in terms of technology, because, are we there yet as far as making specific recommendations? I'd also be open to maybe some more amendments to number 1. Is it something that needs further study? Obviously, we need, first of all, a definition. And then, to the extent, instead of going straight to the prohibition or limiting, it's studying to really determine the effects on, various aspects, and then making recommendations further. But I'm open to those suggestions. We do have some research as to negative effects, but are we there yet as far as a formal recommendation? I don't know, and I'm open to discussion on it.
Thank you. Board Member Smith.
Yeah, appreciate this discussion. Looking at the report in regards to the conversation on oversaturation, I did a quick search, and it looks like the conversation, the general definition starts on page 6, at page 6 of the report, and it goes, oversaturation policing specifically affects race, class, subjugated communities, and it goes on for a few more sentences to kind of complete out the paragraph. So I just direct fellow board members to that section of the report for purposes of clarification, to make sure we have a shared understanding on the way in which we're using the phrase within this report. So that's one. Beyond that, I think that this isn't a new topic in the public discourse. Communities of color and local communities have long been subjugated to over-policing and disproportionately harmed because of oversaturation. And it has devastating effects on a daily basis. And for a lot of folks on the ground, because this is something that they have to repeatedly deal with in their everyday lives, it's not in need of further study. I think the research that the subcommittee did to bring it before the full board is sufficient for purposes of moving forward for today.
Okay, Board Member Tulis. I think you're on mute.
You missed my whole intro to that part, but let me redo it with the same energy. No, I'm in agreement with Board Member Smith. I don't disagree with him, but Board Member Diallo really got me thinking about something. When you think about oversaturation, I think it's more of a question of your organization's philosophies. Does your police department or sheriff's department have a policing philosophy, or do you have a partnership philosophy? So, I can only speak in the terms of my organization. When my stakeholders ask the police department to come in to our various communities, it's because they understand our philosophies. And so when you look at recommendation number 1, it's really hard to create a policy around philosophy. But with that, I would say that I think it's best if we tackled these one by one, because I'd make a motion to table recommendation number 1.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Board Member Kazi.
So I was also looking at page 6, and I think the definition is quite clearly there, although it doesn't say that the definition of oversaturation is X. It says the practice, and then it says also known as oversaturation policing. So that's the very first sentence of section 3 on page 6. And the definition that we have in the report of those oversaturation policing is specifically those institutional practices that are informed by bias. So within our definition here in the Port of Oversaturation Policing, it includes this biased element that concentrates law enforcement presence in marginalized communities. The definition we have is not saying that every concentration of law enforcement presence is oversaturation policing. So working with that definition that we have here in the first sentence of section 3 on page 6, I'm very confident and comfortable in recommendation number 1. I think, as Board Member Smith says, this is long overdue. It's been studied. We have all the studies cited and explained in the report, and asking, I think at this point, for additional time to look at the issue is a complete disservice to our community.
Thank you, Board Member Kazi. All right, so I welcome motions. We have one on the table. And I welcome discussion on that motion. Any further discussion on that motion? Or any?
Would you restate the motion?
Captain Toulouse, do you
Would
want to
you mind
restate the
restating
motion?
the motion?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to table. Well, I suppose I'd ask DOJ, do I need to make a motion to take these one by one at a time, and support that motion first?
Well, you have a motion. You made a motion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
we're just
it'll-
getting clarification on it.
You're right, but when I was thinking about it in my head, it almost sounded like I was making 2 in 1, which was to take them one at a time and table one. Because I don't want to give the inference that I support 2 or 3 at this time either. So,
Okay, so you made a motion. What I heard, you made a motion to eliminate recommendation number 1. That's what I heard. Is that the motion you made?
yes.
Okay, so that's clarification on the motion. Board Member Diallo. I think you're on
I'm
mute.
still on mute. I'm reflecting on Board Member Kazi's comments in terms of where I am with this number 1. And I don't have any specific wordsmithing, so I would definitely open up to anybody who could help us out in that regard. But kind of a specific, and I get that in the narrative, it outlines what at least the effects of oversaturation are, and kind of what our understanding is on the broad outlines. But a specific usable definition of oversaturation that, as Board Member Kazi says, includes kind of, it's directed by bias. I would have no problem under that context specifically making recommendations to prohibit or limit its use. It just wasn't clear to me necessarily that, oversaturation, without that definition, it could include a range of things that could be subject to interpretation, which, I think without that clarity, maybe it's not very illustrative of what we want.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Sierra. You're on mute.
With respect to the proposal on the table about tabling the first recommendation, what I would suggest as an amendment that it would be tabled with further development by this board. So it's not that we're not going to continue working on this. And then just very quickly, 2 points on this. I do feel I think we've done a really good job in relating this practice to either perpetuating or having roots from racial profiling and bias. So I feel like we have made the strong case of why we're looking at this. But I do see the definition here on page 6. And I think what we really mean is disproportionate concentration of law enforcement presence in marginalized communities. And I think, whatever the motive is, whether the motive is explicit bias, implicit bias, or not bias, is still problematic. But I just still am concerned that the definition we have so far is in practice very hard to implement, like for an agency. So that's where kind of I land on this. But my suggestion would be to amend the proposal that it is tabled, but for further development by this board.
So you're offering a friendly amendment to the motion, is that right?
Yes.
And I
Is that
accept.
accepted?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion. still sitting there without a second. So if anyone wants to act on that or make another motion, you are welcome to do so. And I think it does make sense to move one at a time. So let's just stick to any motions or seconds relating to recommendation number 1. Board Member Diallo.
Just to clarify, a motion to table would mean that recommendation number 1 in this regard would not be included in this year's report. Okay.
Correct. Board Member Kazi.
Yeah, I'd like to offer a substitute motion, if I may. I'd vote to approve, or I move to approve recommendation 1 with the following language. The legislature and local policymakers should enact legislation to prohibit or limit police agencies from relying on oversaturated policing as defined in Section 3 above in marginalized communities due to the negative effects of those practices on those communities.
Thank you. So now we have 2 motions.
I'll second the motion by Board Member Kazi.
Okay.
This is Rich Randolph. I'd second the first original
Okay.
Statement.
Okay, so we'll take them in order. We have the motion by Board Member Kazi. Can you restate it, please?
I move to approve recommendation 1 of the policy section to read as follows. The legislature and local policymakers should enact legislation to prohibit or limit police agencies from relying on oversaturated policing as defined in Section 3 above in marginalized communities due to the negative effects of those practices on those communities.
Thank you. Board DOJ, can you call a vote? Oh, sorry, I'll open up for discussion. Chief Toulouse, are you wanting to
Yes,
add discussion to this?
I had a point of order question because you said let's
Uh-huh.
take them in order, but I made my motion first. Are we not voting on it?
Well, it wasn't seconded until second, so it wasn't ripe for a vote until after the Board Member Kazi motion. So I'm taking them in the order of their readiness for votes. So DOJ, can you please call a vote on the motion just stated by Board Member Kazi?
Thank you. Motion on the table to approve the following recommendation. The legislature and local policymakers should enact legislation to prohibit or limit police agencies from relying on oversaturated policing as defined in Section 3 above in marginalized communities due to the negative effects of those practices on those communities. Board Member Armeling.
Aye.
Armeling, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Aye.
Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Nay.
Green, nay. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins. Board Member Hawkins. We'll come back. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Board Member Hopkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board Member Randolph.
Nay.
Randolph, nay. Co-Chair Sierra.
I'm abstain.
Sierra, abstain. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Talese.
Nay.
The motion carries with a vote of 11 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 abstention.
Okay, we did have a second motion with offered by Chief Tulis, and it was seconded. So I think we should proceed on a vote on that. It may be negated by the vote we just took. Alex, do you want to clarify our procedural steps?
Yeah, so there was a motion on the table to table the recommendation number 1 as then written with a amendment that it be tabled with further development from the board. And we'll take a vote on that. Board Member Armeling.
Nay.
Armeling, nay. Board Member Kreiner.
Abstain.
Kreiner, abstain. Board Member Diallo.
Nay.
Diallo, nay. Board Member Ford.
Nay.
Board Member Ford, nay. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Nay.
Guerrero, nay. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye. Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Nay.
Kajabi, nay. Board Member Kulkarni.
Nay.
Kulkarni, nay. Board Member Kazi.
Nay.
Kazi, nay. Board Member Rawl.
Abstain.
Rawl, abstain. Board Member Randolph.
Aye.
Randolph, aye. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Sorry, this is on the second motion, correct?
This is a motion to table the first recommendation as then written, made by Board Member Talise.
Got it. No.
Smith, not a nay, excuse me, Board Member Talise.
Aye.
Talise, aye. That motion fails with a vote of 7 nays, 5 ayes, and 2 abstentions.
Okay, so let's turn to recommendation number 2. We've had some discussion about it. Angela, you had suggested the possibility of taking out the governor and allocating resources, I think. And I just wanted to interject here that I think as originally conceived, I'm not sure this was captured in the edits that DOJ did, that it was conceived of mainly as a budget item. And so the governor and the legislature would have a role to play in that, but I can understand that, that maybe the recommendation may want to be limited. So I just wanted to offer that clarification, and I'm seeking any further discussion or motion with any amendments. We don't have any motions on this yet. Angela.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve this recommendation with the following amendments. With the amendments, it would read: the legislature should enact legislation to allocate resources to an entity with the needed capacity or expertise, such as a state commission or research institution, and follows as we have written it, to study and make further recommendations on whether alternative enforcement technologies such as face recognition, gunshot detection, and predictive policing technology exacerbate existing bias or are deployed in ways that lead to oversaturation policing.
Okay, We have a motion. Any second discussion? Board Member Randolph.
Thank you so much. And once again, I'm glad that member Board Chair Sierra did a modification to that, but I still want to just outline for our new RIPA board members to really do a deep dive in Penal Code 13.519.4, which is why we are here. This board is doing a gross overreach in what we are doing when we're doing recommendation to law enforcement practices, and we're talking about technologies as well. And I also noticed we have talked about the monies that law enforcement agencies have used for technologies in the past. If we're going to go down this path, you're probably going to see on the law enforcement side, law enforcement agencies doing a spot check on how much monies they've used to obtain RIPA data, to collect RIPA data. That's everything from technology, computer systems, and the software systems to use that, as well as the staff to provide that. And that bill is actually going up throughout the state. That is all.
Thank you. Any additional comments or actions on the motion that's on the table?
Second it.
We have a second. DOJ, well, any discussion? Any additional discussion? DOJ, can you call a vote?
Motion on the table to approve a recommendation 2, as currently stated, the legislature should enact legislation to allocate resources to an entity with the needed capacity or expertise, such as a state commission or research institution, to study and make further recommendations on whether alternative enforcement technologies such as face recognition, gunshot detection, and predictive policing technology exacerbate existing bias or are deployed in ways that lead to oversaturation policing. Board Member Armelin.
Abstain.
Armelin abstain. Board Member Kreiner.
Oh.
Kreiner nay. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford aye. Board Member Green.
Nay.
Green nay. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero aye. Board Member Hawkins. Board Member Hawkins. Come back.
Oh,
Board Member
nay.
Hawkins nay. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi aye. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl aye. Board Member Randolph.
Nay.
Randolph nay. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith aye. Board Member Talise.
Nay.
Talise nay. That motion carries with 9 ayes, 4 nays, and 1 abstention.
Okay, let's turn to the third recommendation for any discussion or action. Board Chair Sierra.
Yes, okay, just have some, a recommended edit to this recommendation. Because I'm looking at the various policies, North Carolina, San Francisco, West Hollywood, LA, and Virginia, that we talked about in our report. You know, they're all doing various different things, but it seems like what they each have in common is what they're really doing is limiting types of stops, you know, to try to deal with limiting contextual stops. So I would suggest that the last phrase just be modified to be more to characterize more closely what those are doing. And so it would read, rather than to prohibit pretextual stops and then enact these other policies limiting stops, I would suggest we say to limit pretextual stops consistent with public safety, period. And that is kind of, I think, more generally describes what is happening in each of these various jurisdictions that we're referring to. So that's my input on this one.
Okay, so that wasn't a motion, that was just a suggestion.
Yes, well, I'll make a motion because I think there still can be some public or board member discussion. I would move to approve the recommendation number 3 in the section to read as follows. The legislature and local policymakers should enact legislation or policies similar to those in place in North Carolina, San Francisco, West Hollywood, Los Angeles, and Virginia to limit pretextual stops consistent with public safety.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All right, Chief Tulis.
Well, I'm going to put my objections on the record, even though I could predict the vote here. But remember, we solve a lot of crime. We rescue people that are victims of human trafficking. We interdict fentanyl, guns. This is done through tips, through trends, crime trends, certain criminal enterprises. And so, you know, if the goal is to get to the point where you only can stop a vehicle based on a bona fide California vehicle code, remember again, you know, my job is to bring justice to victims, you know, safeguard the Constitution. I have an oath. My officers take an oath. We do things lawfully and legally, but, you know, we have the other house, which is to bring justice to victims, to rescue victims. And so again, I'm going to speak out against policies that I think infringe on that ability to do our jobs on behalf of victims. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Board Member Diallo.
Yes, I want to acknowledge Chief Tulis's concerns about, you know, impacting on public safety. That's why I readily wanted to second Co-Chair Sierra's amendment, which I think balances those concerns. You know, I think the best policy recommendations that come from this board balance both, you know, issues relating to public safety as well as bias. And I'm always believed in that we could find a middle ground in instituting policies that both serve public safety and don't institute bias. So to the extent that recommendation number 2 includes the caveat that's consistent with public safety, you know, versus an outright prohibition, I think, especially in light of we have a report full of, you know, data and studies and other legislation, you know, that's modeled, recognizing some of the problems of pretextual stops. That's why I think, especially with the amendment, it balances both of those concerns and asks the legislature to just take a careful eye in directing law enforcement in this regard to both serving public safety as well as eliminating bias.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, DOJ, please call the vote.
Motion to approve number 3 with the following amendments. The legislature and local policymakers should enact legislation or policies, excuse me, similar to those in place in North Carolina, San Francisco, West Hollywood, Los Angeles, and Virginia to limit pretextual stops consistent with public safety. Board Member Armelin.
Aye.
Armelin, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Abstain.
Kreiner abstain. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Nay.
Green, nay. Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Nay.
Hawkins, nay. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi. Board Member Kazi. We'll go back. Board Member Roll.
Aye.
Roll, aye. Board Member Randolph.
I'm gonna be a nay.
Randolph, nay. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Talise.
Nay.
Nay. The motion carries with 9 aye vote. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. Board Member Kazi, one last chance.
I'm an aye.
Aye, gotcha. And the motion carries with 10 aye votes, 4 nays, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Appreciate that. Are there any other, is there any other input on the body of the policy section? We voted on the recommendations, but consistent with what we've been doing, I think we need a motion to accept the policy section. I haven't heard any need for any amendments to the section apart from the recommendations that we've already voted on, but I welcome a motion to accept the section.
I'd like to move to accept the section.
Thank you. Do we have okay. Any discussion? DOJ, please call a vote.
Motion on the floor to approve the 2026 policies section of the report. Board Member Armeling.
Aye.
Armeling, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Aye.
Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aside from what we've already voted on, am I just voting against myself now?
This would be a vote to accept the report with the amendments to the recommendations.
Except the policy section.
Except the policy section, I apologize.
Okay, I'll abstain. Thank you.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board Member Roll.
Aye.
Roll, aye. Board Member Randolph.
Nay.
Randolph, nay. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Solis.
Nay.
Solis, nay. That motion carries with a vote of 12 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 more sections of the report. I think things will move more quickly here towards the end. The next section is the post section. So while you're pulling that up, I'll just flag there's no recommendations here. It's just a discussion of the work of the post committee. And to summarize from what we have in the intro, that the section reflects the board's continued work with POST to identify ways to improve law enforcement training related to racial identity profiling, to train officers not just on the law's prohibition against profiling, but on how profiling can decrease the safety of both the officer and the community and the individuals they serve within that community. And then this section points out that the board will begin a 2-year review of the field training program. So that is the work ahead. Board Member Sierra.
Yeah, I just have something that I probably should have caught because it relates to me. On page 19 of this chapter, on the vision for future reports, the second paragraph, it indicates that when I appeared for POST, I also answered questions from the commissioners. I would like to suggest that be amended, that I also answered questions and received input from the commissioners. So I just forgot that. And then in that second sentence where we talk about that we want to be, we highlight the fact that we aim to strengthen our partnership by working more collaboratively in the future. I would just also suggest we amend that by working even more collaboratively in the future. That was all I had for this.
Thank you.
For this section.
Any other discussion on this section? Board Member Randolph.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, DOJ, for highlighting on this. I just want to confirm as I look at the agencies here that we've cited on the SB2, confirming this is the first wave of agencies. So I see San Bernardino SO, San Diego SO for DOJ. Can you clarify, you guys selected those agencies for the first wave, or was it just random?
Board Member Randolph, I think you're referring to the accountability section of the report, though that chart on the accountability section is the wave 1 and wave 2 agencies only.
No, we're talking about POST. We're talking about POST right now, right? The POST section? Yeah, so the decertification.
Can you point to the page number?
I'm looking at my original, it was the introduction page. I'm sorry, Chair Guerrero, I don't have the whole report up. I have the introduction page. And it's talking about the SB2 decertification. And it's under the POST section, ma'am. It has LA Sheriff, LAPD has like the larger, it looks like the first wave agencies. And it talks about the SB2 actions within those agencies.
Yeah, that's all part of the accountability section. I'm looking at the introduction to make sure that we haven't transposed any paragraphs, but yeah, also it flows together one after the other, so maybe you were looking at POST and accountability as part of the same, but they're two different sections.
Okay, well then on that note, as far as the POST, if the agencies were identified for SB2, how do we get this data? Did we public request this from POST? Did you guys get this directly from POST? And is it current?
Can we hold until we get to the accountability section? Because that's where that is.
Sure. All right.
Okay, great. Just so we make good use of our time. All right, so we're in the POST section. And the POST is talking about the POST section of the report is talking about the different training reports. Training courses, and is focused on those courses and the guidelines for those courses. Again, there's no recommendation. It's just a reflection of the review and the work and a look to the future for the 2-year review of training. Board Member Tulis.
This is probably a quick question, but because we went back and forth, I want to make sure I'm looking at the 19-page document that's the 2026 post-draft report. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Kulkarni.
I don't want to shortchange any discussion, but if folks are ready, I can make a motion to approve this section, the post section of the report with the changes that Co-Chair Sierra suggested.
Great. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Okay. And could we restate the motion? And Angela, I wonder if you could restate it since it includes your suggestions.
Sure. And I just have one question. Is our post recommendation in this section or someplace else?
There's no recommendation that I saw in this section. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Okay.
There
For some
is
reason- Mhm,
there is
go
a
ahead.
small recommendation, I apologize, that is not framed, that is not framed in the kind of the traditional way that that you see in the reports. Let me show you where it is. It is on page 8, the end of the first full paragraph. And the recommendation simply says the board recommends that Post continue to work with the board to explore ways to measure its course effectiveness.
Can you point out where that is? Oh, I see. It's the last sentence of the first paragraph.
Correct.
Okay. If that's intended, and I guess I would look to the people in that committee, if that's intended to be a recommendation, then I strongly suggest we put that in the form of all other recommendations at the end with a subtitle that says recommendations. So post committee people, was that your intention to make that a recommendation?
It's something that is done in the normal course.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that's what's a little bit different about it. I defer to the co-chairs as to whether this needs to be an actual recommendation because there's nothing controversial. There's no real action other than, again, the day-to-day business of Post.
Right. And so maybe that language could be altered to say something like the board looks forward to working with Post to explore ways to measure its course effectiveness. So it doesn't read as a recommendation.
That would be great. And I would, if possible, amend my earlier motion to include that language.
Okay. Board Member Tulis.
Well, it sounds like it's being resolved, but I think, moving forward, there's no such thing as a little recommendation for one. It's either a recommendation or it
Right.
isn't. It needs to go in the proper place and it's,
Yes.
so I think we all recognize that. So I would support Board Member Kulkarni in that amendment, removing that as a recommendation and just making a statement.
Okay. So Angela, can you help us restate this motion?
Yes, so the motion is to adopt the post-draft chapter for our report with the following modifications. That the wording regarding the RIPA board continuing to work with Post to measure its course effectiveness will no longer be stated as a recommendation. It will be worded to the effect that the RIPA board looks forward to continuing to work with Post to explore ways to measure its course effectiveness. Also, with the following changes on page 19, the second paragraph under vision for future reports would indicate that co-chair Sierra also answered questions and received input from commissioners, and that the presentation highlighted the fact that the board and the commission aim to strengthen their partnership by working even more collaboratively in the future.
Okay. DOJ, can you take a vote?
Motion to approve the post section of the 2026 report with the changes that board co-chair Sierra just articulated. Board member Armeling.
Aye.
Armeling, aye. Board member Kreiner. Board member Kreiner. We'll come back. Board member Diallo. Oh, board member Kreiner, aye. Diallo, board member Diallo.
Aye.
Oh, aye. Board member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board co-chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board member Randolph.
Nay.
Randolph, nay. Board co-chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board member Talise.
Nay.
Talise, nay. The motion passes with a vote of 13 ayes and 2 nays.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our last section, accountability. So, Board Member Randolph, this is, I believe, the section that you were looking at. So while everyone's pulling that up, just to confirm, it's called Accountability Draft Report Section, and it's 28 pages. This is the section that it explores the impact of civilian oversight agencies, and that it also talks about Senate Bill 2, SB 2 decertification. Give folks a few minutes to take a look at this section. It does make 5 recommendations regarding recommendations to civilian oversight agencies that are on page 21. So we will be turning to those. We can pick them apart, or we can consider them as a slate. The section also includes tables of agencies with a listing of just a checklist of what kind of civilian oversight they have. And it says in the report that the first set of agencies are Wave 1 and Wave 2 agencies. So that answers your question, I believe, Board Member Randolph. They're identified as such, Wave 1 and Wave 2. And we'll begin with Board Member Randolph.
Thank you so much, Chair Guerrero. So I see Antioch PD on here. Antioch PD on page 27 with their 88 officers and 4 revoked. So I've got multiple questions here on this. I just wanted to confirm that all the agencies that have been listed here, were they advised they're going to be listed in this report? Number 1. And number 2 is if they were Wave 1, am I seeing this correctly? It was Antioch PD included in were they a part of Wave 1?
So Board Member Randolph, I would just, if you're looking at the section, you're looking at two different sections. So the tables that have the Civilian Oversight Agency
Yes.
check boxes, those are part of the discussion on civilian oversight, and those,
I apologize.
yeah, and so so the first part of the report is about civilian oversight. The second part of the report is about SB2 and decertification, and I think that's where you're now looking at, and you're looking at Antioch.
Okay, I apologize. So this information, the decertification from Post, how did we get that information?
DOJ, if you want to answer, I believe it's all footnoted there. But
It is
DOJ, if
footnoted.
you
I
want to
just wanted to see
answer.
what the process was and what the time frame was, because the decertification process is constantly evolving with all agencies in the state. So I just want to make sure if we're going to start citing Post data, which that's their responsibility in our report, just so we can maintain credibility for the RIPA board, I want to make
Yeah.
sure it's been cited properly. That's all.
Yeah, so Board Member Randolph, if you look at the footnotes that relate to these, they are footnoted to publicly, to public links where post officer certification actions are posted. So that's where these are cited to.
Okay, but there was also a section where it was talking about the police officers are under review.
Yeah, I believe all of that is publicly available, posted. But DOJ, if you wanna, I mean, if you look at the footnotes, you can see those are all public links to the agency's statistics and certification actions. Those are all what Post is putting up publicly.
And then the last question I had is, what's the deviation or what was the reasoning for the division of the North and the South?
So if I
Alex?
recall if I
Mhm.
recall correctly, that was a discussion in the subcommittee to address or to look from a regional perspective of Northern and Southern California to determine if there were any differences in how Northern California agencies and Southern California agencies proceed with regards to those actions. So that was a discussion in the subcommittee that's reflected in that report.
Okay, so thank you for letting me know about that. So what's just so I know for clarity, because there's different dividing points for the state as far as North and South. So what was the dividing point between the state?
I think that's discussed in the report as well, with regards to how the division happened. Let me see if I can find that for you.
I see it on page 24 about the North and the South, and it specifically talks about the different numbers as far as the.
Yeah, so if you look at footnote 160 on page 24, Southern California is defined as the counties that are listed.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Keeping us honest. Other discussion before we turn to page 21, where we have a set of 5 recommendations for civilian oversight agencies. There are no recommendations regarding SB2 decertification. Board Chair Sierra.
Yes, I just have a comment and suggestion regarding the 3rd recommendation. A suggestion that since this recommendation is recommending unfettered access to kind of a broad category of data by the Civilian Oversight Committee, I would suggest that at the end we do state, make an indication about confidentiality. So my suggestion would be to end that recommendation in lieu of reported data to say that they have unfettered access basically to other information related to the, and this is the new language, matter being reviewed, comma, with all appropriate confidentiality protections in place. I think that's implied, but I think that it'd be helpful to include that. And another very technical recommendation is earlier in that recommendation where we say contemporaneous and unfettered access to information. I would suggest using the word timely and unfettered access to their agency's data, etc. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Other discussion? If not, I would welcome a motion, and in the interest of time, if
I'll
If
move to
anyone-
accept the recommendations.
okay, all five as a slate, are you accepting them as they are written or with the modification suggested by Angela?
Let's accept with modification accepted by Angela, or suggested by Angela.
Okay,
I would second that with the modifications.
okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. Angela, since you are the great amender, can you help us restate the motion with the changes that you are putting in there?
Sure. So the motion would be to adopt the 5 recommendations in the accountability section as written, except with the following modifications to the 3rd recommendation. The word contemporaneous will be replaced with the word timely. And at the end of that recommendation, the words reported data will be replaced with the phrase matter being reviewed, comma, with all appropriate confidentiality protections in place. Period.
Okay, great. DOJ, can we take a vote?
Motion to approve the accountability section of the 2026 report with the modifications just stated by Co-Chair Sierra. Board Member Armeling.
Aye.
Armeling, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Yes.
Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board Co-Chair Sierra. Oh, excuse me. Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board Member Randolph.
Nay.
Randolph, nay. Board Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Solis.
Nay.
Solis, nay. The motion carries with a vote of 13 ayes and 2 nays.
Thank you. All right, as this agenda item, the last thing we need to do is more procedural, which is to as we did last year, to authorize co-chairs Angela and myself to do a final review of the report and do a final sign off for DOJ to publish. The reason why that's important is because we've made suggestions, or not suggestions, we've made motions, and there will need to be one more look at this report before it goes. There will be no substantive changes, but this is a RIPA board report, not a DOJ report, so we do have to have final ayes and final sign off on it. So I would welcome any questions or discussion around this, but procedurally, we need to vote to authorize Angela and myself to sign off on the final report before publication.
I'm happy to make that motion.
A second.
Thank you. Great.
I'll second.
DOJ staff, can you take a vote?
Motion on the floor to authorize co-chairs Sierra and Guerrero to do a final review of the 2026 report and do a final sign-off before the Department of Justice publication. Board Member Armeline.
Aye.
Armeline, aye. Board Member Kreiner.
Aye.
Kreiner, aye. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins. Board Member Hawkins. Come back. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi. Kazi, aye. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board Member Randolph.
Aye.
Randolph, aye. Board Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Tsoulise.
Aye.
Aye. Board Member Hawkins. Oh, right. Looks like Board Member Hawkins is just returning. Board Member Hawkins, the motion on the table is to approve, to authorize Co-Chair Sierra and Guerrero to do a final review of the 2026 report and do a final sign-off before Department of Justice publication. What's your vote?
Yes. Yes. Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Right, and that vote carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We are done with this agenda item. Thank you so much for getting through this. That was the hardest thing we do every year. Now turning to public comment and opening it up for public comment. Is there anyone from Southern California who would like to make a public comment?
Yes. There is
Proceed.
There is someone from Southern California who would like to make many public comments, but I know I'm limited. If we are approving this publication today, why do we have a delay until the end of January? What purpose does that serve? The second thing, I'm a little bit exercised by the inability to deal with the issues that are before us. We have 3 complaints for racial profiling being sustained out of 1,500 being filed, and that's the only comment that came out of this body. Why is that? You have a much larger problem on your hands than you're willing to face. And I will do everything in my power to make you face them. The data that you have used, that you continue to use, that you would have us accept is flawed. Not flawed because of the ALEAs who have adulterated it, but flawed because this body has failed to validate it. When I validate this data, the things that I see are ugly. And I've shared the ugliness with you from time to time, and you have done nothing about it. Now let us move on to a concern that Board Member Randolph has repeatedly raised: the nature of STAT data and the arduous nature of collecting it. It is not difficult to collect if you use technology. Technology that the California Department of Justice has participated in the development of which. The problem with that technology is that it will produce accurate reports. And I think there are some people who find inaccurate reports useful. I am an advocate for using technology, including AI, in capturing REPA data. It will set aside for good, forever, the claims of those who would find fault or difficulty in the collection of REPA data. It will be accurate unless someone intervenes. I thank you. I am disappointed. I am humiliated, and I do not like this. Thank you. Goodbye.
Any additional comments from Southern California? How about Central or Northern California? Any additional public comment? Okay, hearing none. Just a time check. We're at 3:20. We have a few more items to go. Do we have a break built in? Do we need a break or should we push through? Push through, raise your hand.
I think we should push through.
Okay. Okay, feeling strongly about that.
I hate to ask, but and I know the moment we have a break, it's time, but is it possible to have a very abbreviated break? Like
Very abbreviated. Yes, a bio break. Okay, let's do.
For example, yes.
Yeah, for example, or whatever you want to do. Okay. It's 3:22. Let's come back at 3:27 and knock the other items out. Thank you.
Afternoon, board members. Just as a reminder so that we can ensure, excuse me, that we're reestablishing quorum. You're returning from break. Make sure that you keep your cameras on so we can get an accurate count. And for members of the public, please keep your cameras off until the next portion of the agenda where we are receiving public comments. So as board members are returning from break, please turn your cameras on so we can reestablish quorum. Thanks so much.
DOJ, you're going to let us know when we have quorum?
We will let you know, and I imagine it'll be very, very soon.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a reestablished quorum.
Wonderful. Okay, our next agenda item. I guess we jumped ahead here. I apologize, but we jumped ahead to the public comment. But we have agenda item board discussion and action on the 2026 report and recommendations. Is that, no, I guess that's what we've, sorry, hold on. Coming back into it. Okay. Board discussion of potential themes for the 2027 RIPA report and public engagement. This is an opportunity for us to take a few minutes to think about potential themes for next year's report and also to think about how to expand public engagement of the RIPA proceedings. Open the floor to any thoughts, and of course we'll have more opportunity in the new year, but it does help DOJ to have a sense of our interest. Board Member Kulkarni.
I would recommend following up on the important discussion we had at the last board meeting regarding immigration enforcement, and see if there's further information that we want regarding what is happening to everyday Californians as a result of what I would consider unconstitutional actions. Yeah, so would want more information and further discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Board Member Smith.
I agree. I think that the conversation that we had in the most recent board meetings were quite helpful, but to me, they were a starting point. When it comes to issues of law enforcement throughout California, this year, the immigration raids and attacks on undocumented people was probably the highest of all things of public importance that we were seeing. People were in the streets protesting, families were being torn apart, and it was extremely devastating. And it's rooted in racism and xenophobia, and that goes to the heart of the overall purpose of the RIPA board, which is to prevent communities from being harmed based on their race or other aspects of their identity. And I think this is extremely important, and I completely agree that we should continue the conversation and figure out ways that we can be helpful.
Thank you. And I'll just add that I agree that the conversation we had in October was a good starting point, and the nexus to our work was the role of local and state law enforcement in addressing issues of bias. And so there's more work to be done to understanding the role of law enforcement, local and state law enforcement, as things proceed. The landscape is changing. I think we acknowledged that in the October meeting, and it will continue to change. And so I think that we have to stay within the four corners of our mandate, which is to address racial identity profiling of, within the state of California through the lens of local and state law enforcement. And the ground is shifting in real time. We're starting to see engagement between local and state law enforcement and federal law enforcement on some of these incidents. So I think, clarifying what community members can expect from local and state law enforcement is going to be important, and understanding what the data, available data, tells us. Board Member Sierra.
Yes, well, first of all, I agree with that as well, our continuing work on that in that area very much. And another potential theme or area that I would be interested in, I would suggest, with respect to, as we did with civilian oversight agencies in this report, talking about how they can use the RIPA data. I don't know if we've done a lot with respect to how local law enforcement agencies themselves, like guidance and assistance on how they can use the data, especially for the smaller agencies. I think some of the larger agencies, have in place approaches and how they're analyzing their own data, on a macro level, on a micro level. So I think it could be helpful to explore that a little more. We have all this data and how they could be of use to the actual entity that is providing the data.
Yeah, how to make it actionable for the agencies. And we talked about that at the last meeting. Board Member Tulis. Oh, sorry, Board Member Randolph, if you don't mind, I didn't miss that. Okay.
Thank you so much, Chair Guerrero, for opening that up. I think the board came when I first joined. I think things have really changed a lot. I think there's a lot of dialogue. I think it is open. But since we're talking about moving forward for next year, one thing that I'm concerned about, because I do talk to cops up and down the state, including chiefs, is their thing is they'd like to see the RIPA board be more engaged. And I've talked about it. I've talked to DOJ about it. The chiefs have talked about it. And this is going to be rattling at Sacramento, is this board needs to be more engaged with law enforcement agencies and academies. And I do believe there's people on this board that are open to that. Andrea, I know you've already done it. And I know there's people on this board that are open to do that. As we continue to pick out our reports, I think we need to be more engaged as far as going on ride-alongs, going to agencies, and just actually seeing the work being done by law enforcement. Because the big picture, because we are coming up to our 10-year, and DOJ threw it all over the report, and this board continues to stand on it, is just racism is still prevalent in law enforcement. It hasn't changed. And what we're seeing is, that's a problem for us. Something's wrong with the data or the data collection. Don't get me wrong. Does racism happen? I'm sure it does. Yes, it does. And we don't tolerate that. And we've made modifications on the law enforcement side. The consensus from law enforcement and government officials is the RIPA board and DOJ are not making the modifications. So I'm hoping, because I see there's a lot of open-mindedness on this board, there really is. I'm excited that I'd like to see us do a little bit more of that. I think that would really open a lot more dialogue as well. Thank you.
Board Member Tulis.
Yep. So I'm just trying to determine, is it DOJ's position that local law enforcement is cooperating with federal authorities on immigration? Because I'm hearing over and over a nexus where members on this board are trying to tie us into what the federal authorities are doing. And I just want to know, is that a DOJ position? Is it a RIPA position? And why is that happening?
Yeah, if I could just further clarify, and I really encourage you to look back at the video of the October meeting, because I think there's a gap between what I'm saying and what you're hearing, which is that there's a role. We all understand that SB 54 prohibits local and state law enforcement from engaging in immigration enforcement. But the focus of that meeting was the duty of local and state law enforcement to intervene when federal law enforcement is engaging in an abuse of power writ large. And
Right.
that date, yeah, so that's the no part of that conversation was about the confluence of these two worlds or false equivocations. That was not what was going on. What was going on was members of the public are calling local and state law enforcement, calls for service, or there's calls for mutual aid. What is the duty of local and state law enforcement? That's the question that we delved into. So I would encourage you to view that meeting.
No, I understand that. I just think the more it's said in conjunction, I just don't want us to paint a picture. I'm worried that, again, I've seen RIPA shift, and when there's this mission breach, it usually tells me that something has probably run its course. And so my theme for 2027 would be, this is our grand finale report. We thank everybody for their service, and the work here's done.
Thank you for your input. I saw some other hands. I saw Board Member Diallo, your hand went up and then back down. Did you want to
Yeah,
make
I
a
was
point?
going to make further comments about the October meeting, but I'll just rest on your comments. It was much better said than I would, and encourage everyone to watch that meeting because it was instructive.
Board Member Smith.
Yeah, and just in response to Sean, I appreciate the sentiment that you and Rich expressed. I don't think there's any intention for like finger pointing of like, law enforcement, local law enforcement doing this or that wrong. But when I was making the comment earlier about the importance of having this topic addressed, it was really just because it's a significant issue of public concern. It relates to race and racism. And if we're thinking about different options, to me, it makes perfect sense. There's a natural synergy, a natural marriage between what everyday people care most about and the overarching purpose of what this board is supposed to live into. So with that in mind, it's not about any particular agency or anyone doing anything wrong, but more so being responsive and really trying to meet the moment.
Chief Julius. You're on mute.
I thought I clicked it right. I respect Board Member Smith's position, and really everybody's. I suppose I would ask, we need help separating. Like, if you know that we're not part of that, we need your help in getting the message out that that's not us in local and state law enforcement doing what the federal authorities are doing. And so I'm asking for, somehow this can be worded or constructed in a way that understanding that that's not us, that's them, and we're here for our communities. And as Board Member Randolph said, we want to find the root of certain behavior within members of the organization. We just got to be careful putting us in the same pot, even by wording, or, you get my point in that. I hope just help us get the message out that we're not them. We serve our local communities. And that's all.
Thank you. Board Member Diallo.
Yes, briefly, I think I will try to go back to the comment that I was going to make before, just in response to Chief Tulise, because I appreciate, reflexively, when we talk about immigration enforcement in the context of RIPA that, deals with our local law enforcement agencies, kind of the response is, like a finger pointing. And that's why I really would encourage you to watch the October 9th. That was not the tenor of the topic at all. In fact, it was the environment responsive to, what the people, in terms of what's going on in the federal level. It complicates our local law enforcement agencies and it kind of undermines them in several significant ways. So, we talked about the tension between the Values Act and the duty to respond in terms of what we're, interact with ICE. And then to the extent that ICE may be, calling in local law enforcement for non-immigration enforcement actions. So not pointing a finger at local law enforcement, but understand the environment in which local law enforcement is operating based upon what's going on the federal level. Are there any policy recommendations or anything that we can do to assist local law enforcement to, consistent with California law and consistent with our values, where it's that interaction is causing complications for local law enforcement? It wasn't pointing the finger at local law enforcement as being engaged. It's acknowledging the environment is complicating in a lot of ways local law enforcement, and also to get the message to the public that, yeah, I mean, these are, we have the Values Act in California. We have these new laws and regulations that, that are separate us from the feds. And to the extent that that's complicated by the federal government, or any policy recommendations that would increase transparency and also assist local law enforcement in these interactions. That's what the tenor of the meeting was. So I want to emphasize that in terms of, what it was about.
Yeah, thank you. I think the world is only going to get more complicated. And so I think this is a really dynamic group of people to continue to think about how we can be responsive to the California public. So we'll have much more to think about, and as the landscape continues to change. But I did want to just take this moment to really underscore Angela's suggestion, because I think that that's really, really important, is really some more nuts and bolts. Like, I would love to get into how to make the data usable, hopefully with the data portal coming online. That can be part of it, but also understanding from local agencies how they are using it, and maybe creating a platform for agencies to showcase how they're using it, or roundtable on ideas. I shared in the last meeting some aha moments that we've had here locally with law enforcement who use something called Blue Team. They already use a dashboard for other things, and how dashboards could be really effective if given the opportunity for the public and law enforcement to weigh in on what the dashboard should do, what it should look like. And there could be different levels of the dashboard, right? There could be like a, general public dashboard. There could be, some agencies already have like more sophisticated internal dashboards, giving them real-time information. Anyways, I think, Chief Talese, if we can do that, then maybe we can celebrate 10 years. Any other suggestions? We're not coming to any decisions right now. Just thinking out loud. Why don't we take a few minutes to also think about public engagement? Public engagement has been challenging this year. We have some steady members of the public who participate and monitor. We had a lot more in some meetings and less in others. So give thought to how we can increase public engagement. We've talked about whether we should try to do any in-persons or not. Yeah. Board Member Armelin.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask a question to other board members. I don't know and I'm not suggesting we have to come to any kind of like conclusion on it, but in years prior, specifically 2 years ago, we had made a decision that to try and when we're all receiving media calls, for example, when certain announcements are made, certainly when the report comes out, all that kind of stuff. Before, not every year, but in certain years, we've made the decision like, hey, why don't we try to direct those media calls to the co-chairs so that there's consistency in narrative, so that like we're not getting different, looking stupid as a board because different people telling journalists different things. And so, you know, just kind of a common practice. We assign a couple of people that are going to field those questions. But in the past, that's been co-chairs before. I say this like having no problem, you know, fielding these calls. I mean, as a professor, I do it all the time. But I would do that typically in my own personal capacity as a member, but not on behalf of the board. I'm just bringing this up to the board because I continue to get these questions, and I actually asked the DOJ staff, like, hey, what are we doing with this now? Like, are we pushing these to co-chairs? Do you want me just fielding these questions myself? Like, so I'm cool running whatever way. Again, I do this all the time, but in the past, we'd actually made a decision in this regard. So I'm just wondering if we want to make a similar decision, knowing that the report's going to come out soon. And I know I'm going to get, you know, a landslide of requests.
Yeah, so I could share just from the past institutional memory and experience. Even when the calls come to the chairs, we speak in our personal capacity because you know, the board work is done in public, and you know, so we can identify ourselves as being on the board, but the views we share on any particular thing is done in our personal capacity just to honor you know, the work of the board. So you know, maybe DOJ has a protocol that they want to share, but in the, I think what they've said in the past is feel free to share, feel free to take an interview unless you don't feel comfortable. You know, people refer those sometimes to us, but if you feel like you want to take it, but even if it comes to us, we're going to speak in our personal capacity. You know, yes, Alex.
Yeah, just to echo the comments from Co-Chair Guerrero, because this is a state body, and because the requests are to individuals in their, because the request is to individual board members are required to speak only in their individual capacity so that they don't speak on behalf of the board about statements or comments or positions that the board may take without a vote. So that is the distinction, is that if the board wants to take a position on a particular item, and obviously the report is a reflection of the positions that the board as a whole is taking, then that's appropriate because the board has taken a vote on it. But if there are questions from reporters, and understand that board members often get questions from reporters, the answer is I can answer those questions, but only in my individual capacity and not as a board member.
Great.
Excuse me, not on behalf of the board.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good question. I'm watching the clock, and I'm thinking that we should move forward. I want to invite members of the public. If you have any thoughts on the 2027 report theme, I invite you to bring those forward now. Okay, not hearing any board chair Sierra.
Yes, I just wanted to raise on the public engagement, just one more thought about the possibility and a recommendation that you and I as co-chairs have the ability to start reaching out to the legislature with respect to the recommendations earlier than the report being issued. We have votes on the recommendations, and I think in the past what has been done is there's been some briefings to the legislature by the co-chairs. I mean,
That's right.
Yeah, by the co-chairs to the legislative bodies.
That's right. That's right. Based on what the report that we just voted on says. Correct.
Right. So do we need a
Yes.
vote to do that, or is that as the normal course that we can do that?
DOJ, can you clarify whether we need a vote on that? Because that's just a reflection of what we've just voted on. Well, why don't we take a vote? Do you want to make a motion, Angela?
Sure. I will move for the board to approve co-chairs Andrea Guerrero and Angela Sierra to meet with legislative bodies such as legislative caucuses to present the recommendations before the actual report comes out.
Okay. And that's a reflection of the legislative timeline. Legislators usually want to hear from RIPA board in December or January before they have to meet their deadlines for any filings. So in the past, that's what the co-chairs have presented the sections of the report that are just the findings to share what those are. Just the recommendations, sorry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. DOJ, can you call a vote?
I can, and I apologize for not finding my unmute button earlier. Yes.
Okay.
The motion on the table to approve the board co-chairs to complete a legislative briefing on the 2026 report. Board Member Armeling.
Aye.
Armeling, aye. Board Member Kreiner. Board Member Kreiner. Come back. Board Member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board Member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board Member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board Co-Chair Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board Member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board Member Kajabi.
Aye. Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board Member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board Member Kazi. Board Member Kazi. Come back. Board Member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board Member Randolph. Board Member Randolph. Come back. Co-Chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board Member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board Member Talese.
Aye.
Talese, aye. Board Member Kreiner. No vote recorded. Board Member Kazi. No
You
vote
voted in the
recorded.
chat? Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Kazi, aye. Board Member Randolph. Randolph, no vote recorded. That motion carries with a vote of 12 ayes and, 13 ayes and 2 no vote recorded.
Okay, thank you. So the last item we have on our agenda is nomination and election of new co-chairs for 2026. This is a one-year term. Anyone is eligible to nominate themselves or somebody else. And it's important to the functioning of this body that we have co-chairs. So hip hip hooray for co-chairs and nominations, and encourage everyone to consider themselves or somebody else. And I will open the floor for nominations. Let's see, I have Board Member Kulkarni.
I would like to nominate Andrea Guerrero to be co-chair again in the coming year.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, Board Member Sierra.
That was going to be my nomination, as for you to continue as co-chair.
Okay. This is like a 1 step forward, 12 steps back situation. All right. Well, I would like to nominate Board Member Sierra to continue as co-chair.
Thank you. I'd accept the nomination.
Okay. Anyone else want to get in on this?
Do we need a second for the nominations?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Okay. So
May I
Mhm.
second the board member Sierra nomination?
And second, the board member Guerrero nomination,
Okay.
if it needed it. Yeah.
Any other nominations? Okay, DOJ, do you want to run this?
Yes, motion on the table to accept the nominations of co-chairs Guerrero and Sierra for another one-year term as co-chairs of the RIPA board. Board member Armeling.
Aye.
Armeling, aye. Board member Kreiner. Board member Kreiner. Board member Diallo.
Aye.
Diallo, aye. Board member Ford.
Aye.
Ford, aye. Board member Green.
Aye.
Green, aye. Board member Guerrero.
Aye.
Guerrero, aye. Board member Hawkins.
Aye.
Hawkins, aye. Board member Kajabi.
Aye.
Kajabi, aye. Board member Kulkarni.
Aye.
Kulkarni, aye. Board member Kazi.
Aye.
Kazi, aye. Board member Rawl.
Aye.
Rawl, aye. Board member Randolph.
Aye.
Randolph, aye. Co-chair Sierra.
Aye.
Sierra, aye. Board member Smith.
Aye.
Smith, aye. Board member Solis.
Aye.
Solis, aye. One more, board member Kreiner. I think he may have dropped off. There's no vote recorded. So that motion carries with a 14 ayes and 1 no vote recorded.
Well, thank you so much. Congratulations, Angela. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for entrusting, putting your trust in us to lead this body. We have one more year in us and then we're out. So think about who you're going to nominate next year or whether you're going to nominate yourself. Great. All right. Thank you so much. It is 4 o'clock. We finished right on time. We got a lot of work done. Thank you to members of the public who watched, who weighed in, and we'll be back at it in the new year. I hope everyone has a meaningful holiday and that the end of the year goes well for you.
Hey, I just want to say thank you to Andrea and Angela for serving as co-chairs and volunteering to do it again. It's a huge deal, you guys. Like, thank you so much for putting in that work, and I don't want that to be thankless. So again, thank you so much. It's a ton of work that you're volunteering to do again. And I want to tell you that it's important, I think, that we have you two because your kind of pairing of skill sets is really important and kind of perfect for the position. So we shouldn't just silently be letting this happen. Like, thank you so much for taking that step.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Ditto. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.